Thank you everyone for joining this call. I think we may maybe have one or two more joining as well from the looks of the comments. Good to have you on. Looks like we have quite a number of people that are on at Eating Adventure as well, which is very exciting. So we're going to get some updates on some of that too. We've had some great calls already. Although what is kind of interesting is a lot of them have been at 3 in the morning, my time, because I'm in California right now. So it's kind of a bit hilarious. But here we are. So I am going to kick it off with giving everyone's updates. And then given that this is actually my last Crystal Circle call of August, actually, it's our Emerald 3 call. I'm going to kind of like, I'm hoping to do a bit of a recording if there's time to do it, which I think there will be. Right? This has probably been the biggest month of learning for me over the last year, right? And obviously we had a lot of exciting things happen with my 50th birthday and going to China and Japan. And after that, I actually had the Entrepreneur Fast Track event, which some of our Crystal members went to Bali. Had some really big learnings in Bali in terms of some of the things that we're up to and what we're doing. A shift in our model, Entrepreneur Results, which is very exciting in terms of actually growing it even faster than we were growing it already. And then we also now have got our very first event here in Lake Tahoe in America, where we have people flying from all over America to be there as well. So I think that's also a new chapter with some new learnings there as well. So I'm going to leave all that to later. I'm going to start with everyone's updates. I'm going to go the opposite direction from last time, which means we're actually going to start with Daniel this time, and just walking through some of the highlights and also the questions. We've got Daniel here who has written, her highlight is 5 weeks away, Master Trainer, I Ching, a week by the ocean, great time to synchronously celebrate selling my business and recalibrate who, where, what I do. I had 3 people request me to be their paid mentor since I sold my business. Japan, it really got me thinking about 100 to 1,000 years from now. It's actually easier than 1 year. You're absolutely right, it is. And Bonsai, focusing on less and achieving more strength. And also a second meeting with a national care home provider who wants to take Source into the assisted living market. Excited about the opportunity to joint venture with them on it as well. Which is very exciting. Then big questions. Okay, so number 1, GEM support group. I'm allocating space each month for one-on-one mentoring and starting GEM support group like Jan Pollock for group mentoring from Wealth Dynamics and EFT workshops. Any advice on how I can use the space at GS London to reach this further? Okay, question. Number 2, number 1 problem to be aware of when one-on-one mentoring that you should watch out for. I already noticed for me it might be doing too much, as in time. And number 3, positioning. I want to consistently strengthen my position so I can immediately connect with business community leaders in any city, town to run Wealth Dynamics events. Any thoughts on effective ways this can be done? Okay, so first of all, let me ask you, Daniel, if you were to kind of sum up biggest highlight. I know you've already mentioned the whole drink and so on, but if you kind of articulate biggest highlight of just that whole 5-week period for you, what would that be?
Hey everyone, probably for the whole 5-week period, it would probably be something around the whole vision of the future, like everything from the 5 years, from the master trainer to the people that we met to going to Japan and China. Everything was really about just honing in and lasering in on where you're going to be after you're dead and in 30 generations time, and making sure everything that you do is in line with that, which is why all the partnerships, anything I'm doing now, if it's not in line with my true authentic self, then I shouldn't be doing it.
Cool. Awesome. Fabulous. Okay. On that point, given that you really have, from what I can see, 2 big avenues going forward. One of them is Source, and one of them is your own mentoring and master trainer, role going forward, that business as well. How do you see the 2 of them right now as where you're at, percentage-wise in terms of your time, and even revenue-wise in terms of where you'll be like a year from now, like as your best thinking at this point?
Time-wise, to make it really simple, there'd be less time on Source, more time on the mentoring and the master trainer stuff, just because, one, it requires more time, and Source doesn't need that much at the minute. In terms of revenue, if the Source stuff picks up with even just one good JV, I mean, it's a really scalable model. My concern with that is that my heart's nowhere near as in it as I am with other stuff. it's still in it, and I still love it, and there's loads of stuff I can do, but I have to be true and be vocal about that, because that's where it's at. So revenue-wise for that within a year could be really, really good. I'm just conscious I can't put too much time into it because I feel like I'll be going backwards. So I've got to go forwards with the majority of my time doing the global stuff that I want to do, the master trainer stuff that I want to do, and then say like 40%, 30% maximum on source. Does that answer the question?
Okay. Yep, it does. Okay, cool. Okay, good to know that. Okay, that's good. Fab. All right, and final question, just on source, what does it look like now team-wise? Do you have anyone dedicated to that right now?
I've got one meeting on Friday with someone who's currently spending about 30-40% of their time on it. And I've got access to people who are working. I've got no one full-time on it right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what happens over the next 3-4 weeks. Things will have to get done and things have to get decided. So I'll be deciding on what I'm doing with regards to money going into it. There's actually 2 roads with Source. In the next 2 months, it either doesn't exist, which is a possibility, or it will exist. It'll be going forward with a joint venture, and I'll be building a team around it. But I'll be bringing someone in fully, as maybe not as a managing director, but someone in specifically to run that, because it can't be me.
Got it. Okay. All right. Awesome. Cool. All right. I'm going to come back with some thoughts on all of that plus more. So that's really great. Thank you, Daniel. Let's come over next.
I think Roger has dropped off.
By the way, yeah,
Get
just
back on
to
Roger.
let you know, my internet's a bit patchy today. San Francisco, I think they've taken all the silicon bandwidth over Silicon Valley. Okay, let's keep going here. So my team sold over 1.1 million liters of product while I was on the I Ching adventure. First time in 32 years of business. Set to do 1.3 million this month. That's a sign. And number 3, when we sat down for lunch at Japan at the Fast Forward event, each group and their respective top purpose, sustainable consumption and production globally, this was the closest I have felt to being in the right group with the right people versus the flow. It was a great session, which is awesome, right? That's what it's all about, is starting to actually do a new normal, right? So questions. Number 1, had some requests and even job offers and offered partnership to help other crystals in their business in New Zealand, but meeting up with another crystal when she visits South Africa, see if we can work together. How do I do this remotely? What agreements do we put in place? Responsibilities, etc. Number 2, same questions as Sophie Haig from Sweden. So we haven't got to her question yet, so I'll have a quick look. And number 3, how do I get closer to people working on sustainable consumption and production globally? Like, it's the best way to do that as well, right? So just coming up to Sophie. Sophie had a couple of questions. After become business partner with shares and title director of marketing. This is big business and with large investments. Advice regarding shares and what it means to hold 20% of a company in Hong Kong. Pay shares. Okay, so it's really more about like how do you actually do shares, I guess, within a business is really the question there, right? So Waldy, first, same question as you. I'm going to ask it of everyone who came on the Crystal Circle trip with us. What was biggest highlight just the experience of being going on that trip with us?
It's I can't pin it down. No, it's difficult to say what was the biggest highlight. The best, that lunch for me was the best feeling I had sitting in a community, talking about the same stuff. But Roger, there were so many things. I can't pinpoint one exact thing. I can't even explain to my own family everything we did. I've got these moments that pop up that say, oh yeah, we did this and we did that and we saw that and we went to this place. It was mind-blowing.
Okay, all right, okay, cool. Okay, tell me, like, with now your kind of like decision to move forward, because you're a little bit like in the same position as Daniel, but you've seen him overtake you, right? I mean, like, you were already thinking of moving out of your business before Daniel, joined the call and started talking about doing his. And he's like, right, I'm going to do it. And off he goes. Now he's doing his whole new thing, right? And you're still there, like, I've got to, like, how much I'm going to do my existing business, how much the new one. If you were to actually look at where you would love to be a year from now, percentage-wise, how much would be in the current business, how much would be in the actual new green sustainable businesses, what would that look like for you?
Probably 50-50. If I could I've spoken to people. If I had to sell, I won't be able just to exit. With the numbers we are talking, I'm going to have to prove the concept of the business, and I can keep it up for another year or so. So I won't be able to exit within a month or so. It's going to take me about 24 months.
Okay, I got it. But good, at least you got the number in there, right? So that gives me a good starting point, which is cool. Okay, good. Gonna continue. I'm just gonna make sure I get all your questions on here as well. So I had the thing about best way to connect with others, the same question as Sophie, and how to get closer to people working on. Okay, link to our community. Okay, awesome. All right, and I'm going to go through some particular connections off the back of this as well that we'll get to. All right, so next I am going to come over to, okay, well, Joel has just joined us just as we get to Joel's part, actually. So we're going to jump in, right? So Joel's highlight is Resurrected the Mobile Therapist Agency, which we talked about before, systematizing and outsourcing all admin operations to the Philippines, began business planning, evaluation on coaching program for troubled teens based on system we helped our daughter with, and big questions, should I offer deal maker skills in raising investment to other startups versus running my own? And number two, build marketing systems for mobile master agency. So, so Joel, my question is, stepping back for a moment, the whole closing and completion on CloudSpa, is that all complete now? Any other learnings or things that came out of that? Or is it all just kind of like all systems going forward at the moment? Where's that sitting right now? Hey, Joel.
Okay, so I was quite fortunate in that at the end of Cloud Airport Spas, I started working with turnaround investors who were interested in funding the business, like I said, based on if we could get some new deals with our landlords, etc. When those deals didn't come about, they turned into expert advisors on how to close down a business in this situation. So I was kind of given brilliant advice how to deal with the liquidation and my responsibility as a director. So I've had all that in hand. I still have, so in terms of the business side, that's fine. I had personally guaranteed a lot of loans to the business because I'm an optimist. I thought I was always going to turn it around. I'm still dealing with the negotiations with the creditors about that. They're obviously threatening personal bankruptcy if I don't pay, and I'm playing a kind of cat and mouse game with them. But I feel I've got all that in hand, and I'm not stressed by it. I'm okay with that. But yeah, in terms of the business being closed down, I think it actually has now been liquidated. So it's just left to me with my personal guarantees to the creditors.
Okay, all right, good. And then on the launch or relaunch of the mobile therapist business, what kind of time frame are you looking at for that right now?
Well, I need to kind of snap myself back into proper business mode with a hot summer and me feeling sorry for myself. I've not done proper planning. Actually, what I've done is I've resurrected it and I've got the systems working, but I haven't done the planning on it yet. And it's kind of because I find the systems and the actual sales easy, and I find the planning, it's not my natural thing to do. So it's very easy for me just to work rather than to set the big picture and actually set the goal. Although I know as well that without the big goal, I'm not inspired. So I need to go back to the planning stage on that and actually look at a bigger picture rather than just running it like it used to be. So I haven't done the planning yet, which I need to do.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. And so on it, what is the biggest thing you have been working on at the moment within, or you getting started? Are you just getting back into it at the moment?
With the agency?
No. With the whole. Have you got a name that you've given it right now for the mobile massage business?
Yeah. The company. Yeah. I mean, it's not. I haven't even thought of the name probably. It's called Cloud Massage at the moment, just because we were called that about 10 years ago, and we've got a reasonable reputation in the industry, so I didn't want to just let that go and start again. But
okay.
I need, rather than just run a pretty traditional massage agency based on having existing contacts and being good at delivery, I want to make it different and original, have a USP, which I haven't got really at the moment, apart from clients who use us because we're good and reliable. So I need to look at the business planning. I want to look at the social impact. I haven't done any of that yet. I suppose what I've been doing is because I used to use the staff from Cloud Airport Spas to kind of run the operations on the sideline, and when everyone disappeared, I was left with the whole thing on my lap. So I had to kind of just immediately focus on recruiting someone in and then systemizing it and training them. So now I'm not having to do it all myself, because the first few weeks I was having to do everything. You know what I mean? Like, I deal with clients and ring the masseurs and make sure everyone's booked. So now I've got that done. I've got a bit of space now to go to the kind of strategic stage. But no, there isn't a particular USP on it at the moment. It's just I need some money, and I need to make sure that we don't fall on our face doing delivery with clients.
Got it. Okay, I got it. All right. Okay, Joe, I'm going to come back on all of your questions that you got there then. All right. But good to have you back.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, let's come over. Next, we are going to continue on our journey here, and we're going to come up to Sophie, who has got here highlight, I Ching, focus on legacy. Also met with Jan Ellison, founder of UN Global Goals, former Deputy Secretary General of UN. Wow, okay, that's pretty cool. I saw your post on Facebook, that's awesome. Partnered up with Investor Group, creating global matchmaking service or platform, offered job in other company that works with investing, is the question. First Entrepreneur Social in Stockholm tomorrow, and asked to chair Luncheon Network. They want to pay in shares, 240 groups in 42 countries, 40,000 members, which is pretty cool. So I'm in flow with many great things happening. Do really need your advice today, reinvestment in a new company. So here we go. Number one, here's the questions, asked to become business partner with shares entitled Director of Marketing, 2 fast-growing companies in Sweden and Hong Kong. This is big business, multi-million-dollar with large-scale investments in Switzerland, advisory agreement, rights, responsibility, etc. And then also number 2, advisory shares and what it means to hold 20% of a company in Hong Kong. And number 3, pay shares and invoice later to begin with. I'm concerned about cash flow and potential risks. Bottom line, what would you do? And there is actually a link in here. So, okay, well, Sophie, I'm going to ask a quick question, which is just same question as the others highlight from I Ching Adventure. Then I'm going to dive in with some questions on your questions. Hello.
Hello. Well, I have to second what Waldy said. It is mind-blowing. My biggest takeaway is the community, is the love I feel for all of you. It is the all the things that we learn and all the things that you can't really talk about, but that you sort of get at a deeper level. And what was so big for myself was connecting with you all, learning from this, but also tapping into that inner core, you know. And what I took with me was the legacy part and being fed up about playing small. So I left feeling, okay, it's just time now to stop playing small and stepping into that sort of power. And I just decided that I wanted to make big money and make a big difference, and that I wanted to secure funds ASAP. And then suddenly everything happened when I came back home. So it's redonkulous. And it's fantastic at the same time.
And by the way, you're not alone. I'm like if you go listen to some of the recordings on all of the calls that we've had 5 enterprise calls, we've had 2 emerald calls, we've had a sapphire call, and like everyone that's been on that trip, it's like the whole universe has just shifted, right? Like, and what the opportunities showing up and the things that they're doing. For those that really stepped up, which is pretty much everyone's like steps, like I want to play bigger now. Right? I want to play longer. I want to and then because the moment you set that intention, and I mean, you guys have heard me say this enough times, it's 90% mindset, and it's not just your mindset, it's how the universe then shows up for your mindset as well. Yeah. If you basically take the whole basis of our universe, beginning with the foundation being consciousness, you shift your consciousness, you're shifting the foundation, right? And when you shift that foundation, everything else shifts as well, right? So it's why it happens every time, right? But that's really awesome that's happened, which is great. Let's talk then about this new manifestation that's shown up, right? Which is you're here with this opportunity to get shares in a business. Is this the luncheon business, or which business is it?
No, this is way bigger, Roger. This is big. And I wanted to add
well, what is it? What's the company?
Well, the thing, I'll tell you. First of all, and I also wanted to just add gratitude and a fierce determination now to really go big. So what's happened is this. First of all, you know, I'm starting Stockholm Entrepreneur Social. I've also partnered up with a company that actually connects investors and funding and finance. And I mentioned on this call many years that I wanted to start create a foundation of my own matchmaking, money with impact driven and creative, projects and companies and stuff. They are doing that, so we are partnering up. I don't have to do that myself. They're already building that platform, which means suddenly I've tapped into this network with many big companies, many very, very high level investors, and I mean, like the real ones. One of the people on the board is the second to Ingvar Kamprad in IKEA. So obviously they know very well how to run big business all around the world. So that is a great thing, and we've partnered up. So I'm sort of as a business partner. But then I was approached by someone else that I ran into at an arts exhibition, and we started talking. And often when I talk, many people don't really understand all the things, like what we said before, the things that we do within our group, the connections that we have. And maybe people think that, maybe I just work in music or I'm a creative. They don't really get it. This person, he did. And they actually have several companies. It's not in my industry. It's more in property and in management, but with big investments too. And they've got a company in Sweden, got one in Hong Kong, and they're working with big, in Swedish, multi-billion-dollar businesses around the world. And they are looking to partner up with a fifth person, that would be me, to help them on the promotional side as a director of marketing. What I love about them is that they are also very impact driven. They work with solar energy, renewable energy, and are also passionate about supporting, that side. So, and I have many people in my network who are at that level. Yes.
I'm just gonna.
Yes, I'm losing you.
Company that's you're getting. You don't. Yeah. So you don't need to give me all the background, because we don't have all day. Like, seriously, you can just tell me what's the name of it.
The company is Helping Company is the name. Helping Company.
It's called Helping Company?
It's Helping Company. It is quite new, but the people in the company, they've been around the block for a very long time. I'd be happy, not on this official call, but to send you details of the radar with some of these people. They got a bank in Switzerland that they are doing a lot of business with, and this Hong Kong company, like I mentioned. So they want to also bring me to this investment rate, and investors.
So Sophie, so is Helping Company an actual company that has got any revenues today?
They've got many, many big contracts that they've already signed. They've been around now for a year, and they've signed up a lot of big contracts. And I've said to them that I'm interested, but I need to obviously look into the financial side. I haven't seen the actual numbers. I have so far only heard what they've said verbally. And I've said to them that I need to bring someone on board who understands the financial and legal side of this. So obviously they have to look into the numbers. Yes. Based on what they've said and the people I'm working with and the contracts, yes, they've got a lot of money coming in. That's already secured and money already coming in.
Okay. All right. There's no website, right? Because I've just had a look. Can't find one.
Yeah, there's no website yet. It's very much under the radar. And I would be the fifth person, and then we would go live with this whole thing.
Okay, Sophie. Well, look, there's some good stuff happening, but you've got to be really careful you don't go down rabbit holes, right? At the moment, your time is too precious, and there's too many things focusing to do. And people come promising you the world, and it doesn't actually mean anything, right? You got to just know the difference of where your focus is and where the smoke and mirrors are, right?
And how do you know that? That is my question. How do you know that if you get a 10% share here, 20% share there, and with the legal stuff?
It's not about the share. It's not about the share. It's like there's no point actually knowing how much of a percentage of pie you should have unless you know if there's a real pie, right? Otherwise, it doesn't matter if it's 20% or 100%. It's still nothing, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing actually there. So you've got a situation where someone with no website, with lots of promises, has come to you saying, I'm going to give you 20% of a Hong Kong business. And your first question is, okay, well, what do I do with a Hong Kong business? That's not actually the question. The question is, how do you validate someone who comes to you with lots of promises and lots of talk so you can very quickly get on or off it? And so you don't end up with lots of talk as well, right? Yeah. Because when, the many questions real quick, it's like, you're going to get a percentage of the pie. What's the pie? And the answer is there is no pie, right? So it's really, really important not to get carried away. It's really good that you're in flow. Flow is really awesome. Yeah. But generally, most people end up with success traps more than failure traps. It's when things are actually starting to go too well, they get too defocused on too many things and end up not actually getting the key things done properly because they're so busy, chasing the rainbow, right? So don't do that, right? So I'm going to go through how you actually stop that straight away. And, and it's good that you said to him, okay, I want to see, you show me the numbers, you show me the agreements with the other 4 people if they're already on board. Then I can look at it and I can come back to you, but I'm not going to spend any time on it until you give me that, right? And so then you don't spend time getting caught up in their hype, right? Because at the moment it's hype, right? And I know that just from what you said, because you've hyped it up as well, right? Because you don't have the actual facts. So it's really, really super important to do that, right, at this point, right, to keep yourself really kind of clear. So I'll go through the key next steps for you to take with it, but I would not put any more time on that opportunity when you actually could be focusing at the really good ones that you've got that are going, because that's really what you want to focus at moving forward at the moment. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Thank you so much.
Cool, awesome. Okay, but I will still cover that as we go as well, right? So I'm going to actually put down what's the best focus for Sophie right now, and then off the back of that, how to know if a left field opportunity is legit. Okay. So let's come over from Sophie, and we are continue up. We're going to go now to Richard and Kerry. Richard, highlight. I Ching. Learned so much from the experience and others and connections made with Crystal Circle members. The world looks different to me now. We had decided as a board to go for investment to accelerate the value we can deliver. Amazing how this changed our collective thinking, the actual value we can make. Highly recommend Exponential Organizations book, which we made required reading for our senior teams, given us a roadmap. Also delivered our education enterprise incubator to 160 kids at one school and adapted the same program for 2 kids and pupil referral units. Incredible results and feedback from the facilitators when we won 40% of total regional funding allocation. Waiting for dates and delivery 2018-19, which is super awesome. That's really cool. So top questions. If we want to use investment to fund increasing your headcount team board, what time frame do you use to calculate the amount? E.g., CMO with board position, salary for 12 months, 80K, question mark, right? So how do you build that in, okay? Number 2, we as it relies on analyzing data to develop our own AI, the optimization managers currently do, and scalable. Any advice or recommendation by DeepMind or develop? Third one, I keep hearing that it is convincing larger but justifiable investments. So thoughts around that as well. Okay, awesome. So what's really good you're going down this pathway, just from the point of view of like latest pitch deck. That's going to be one of my questions. But again, I'm going to start just in terms of giving you guys a chance to just articulate whatever was biggest highlight from the I Ching adventure as well. Hi guys, good to see you again.
Hello, Jeff.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Kerry didn't make it on the I Ching, obviously, but
next time.
Yeah.
next time. Yes.
Well, I think I said it on the gem call. Really, I think there was so much in reiterating what everyone said. Really, I think there was there's just something every day that showed up that added value on so many different levels. But the one thing that kind of, two things really is literally the group dynamic. And the kind of sort of the waves of consciousness the kind of group kind of went through basically on that trip. Having never been on a group trip before, you don't really know what to expect. And the really cool thing was that the amazing work that Penny and Danny did in telling us where to be, almost what to wear, when we were going to be eating, everything. What that actually did was you didn't have to think, so you were completely open to absolutely everything that was going on. So that was amazing, basically, that whole thing. So you had all these 60 entrepreneurs going around like sheep. It was amazing. I think I said on the call though, that the whole thing about that Daniel said and everyone else has said around the 1,000-year thinking, and just seeing that manifested in bonsai trees and the grace and deliberateness of everything from Tai Chi to calligraphy to the samurai code, everything basically. It's just like I say, opened my eyes to a whole different way of thinking basically. So it was awesome.
Okay, awesome, very cool, very cool. I'm going to switch gears to your plan for funding. Where are you at right now in terms of a pitch deck and in terms of a picture in mind of how much you're looking to raise? How progressed are you in that area?
So we've we just literally follow the template, best templates we've found out there, and we've just gone straight to the front one. I think you highlighted before. I think I've commented on it before. So we kind of used that. And what was really cool was that I kind of put the business case to the board. I wrote a sort of a business case scenario to the board before I went to our teaching, and we sort of discussed it. And then in my absence, our MD and our COO had basically kind of just started mapping it out. So that was really cool. And they'd found the front one at the same time as well. So that was the template that they were interested in following. So that's basically where we are. So the first port of call last week literally was, we kind of like literally just posed problem and solution we've also, and then yesterday we kind of like just pulled all our results basically, and we've done it by committee, but now we're kind of focusing on it. So basically we've started using that as a template and filling in the blanks, literally just following that because it seems to be the best way to articulate it all. In terms of the amount, we're still not 100% sure. I mean, it's not just around people, it's around marketing, it's about investment in tech as well, developing the platform further and the assets we need to do. And I think we're sort of pondering whether it's worth doing it in, some of the advice I've been given, in doing it in not 2 rounds, but in 2 phases instead of the first round. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. So we think we need probably around about 300 to 500, depending on how we manage sort of the headcount scenario. And then the second one would get us to sort of capacity within production. And then the second round then would be probably around about 350 to 400, which would then actually completely double our actual capacity. So it can effectively scale to double it again.
Okay. All right. So you said, what's the first amount? I heard 350, 400 for the second amount. What's the first one again?
It would be, we're still, it depends on the head count, but it would be between 300 to 500K.
For the first round?
Yeah.
And then same for the second round, or second round will be higher?
It'd probably be the second round would be about the same, yeah.
Okay, all right. So that's your thinking at the moment, and you're just going through the process with the pitch deck, right? So kind of get an idea of that too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I will come back to you just in terms of thoughts around what's the right amount, just based on what size business you got. If you look at where you're tracking at the moment, by the time you get to the end of the year, what are you currently predicting by December in terms of your monthly revenues?
Well, annual revenue by that point will be 1.5. I think it's difficult because peak November and December obviously are peak. They're seasonal. Okay. So it varies across the months basically. Yeah. Okay.
And on that, how are you tracking in terms of profit or loss on that?
We're just about breaking even now. So we're just moving into profit.
Okay, got it. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. Okay, thanks, guys. That's great. I will come back to you on answers to your questions. Okay, great. Let's come over. Next, we are coming to Glenn and Jane. Hi, Jane. Thanks for top questions. Number 1, need online presence, Facebook, landing page. For the Magnetic Minds, booking call for Siraj, no question, just saying, need to refine a message for this. Number 2, decluttering time. The prime time conversation was an eye-opener. So we did that at the Chris Circle conference. Now Glenn and I need to be true to finding another way of working so we stop procrastinating. Any secret source for this? I kind of know the answer, but I'm hoping. Okay, all right. Well, actually, these are more a bit of to-dos, right? You need an online presence. You need to actually declutter your time. And then you're kind of like saying, is there another way of doing it other than just doing it, right? So I guess I'm going to have a question to you on that one. But before I get onto that, same question, like biggest thing for you off our trip?
Yeah, hi, Roger. Hi, guys. Good to see everybody's face again. I think much like what the others have said, it's quite hard. I've been trying to tell people about it, and it's very hard to articulate the depth, which I'm finding interesting. So Investec have approached me to do a talk on my trip. So I'm putting together my I Ching learnings, and what I'm loving and why I agreed to it, and I'm doing it for free, and why I agreed to it is because it forces me to bed down and spend time really immersing back into the learning so that it comes back to the fore of my mind, which is what I think I need. Because, so I'm really excited about that, and also excited just to share the journey, because it's amazing. I've had about 52 people phone me and say, can I please have coffee and find out more about it? And I said, no, can't do this like this. I'll do it so I'm also doing a group session to the public just as an opener, and at the same time just going to sell some tokens and debriefs in that moment, hopefully. So yeah, I think probably for me, one of the, other than the community, which is always the key thing, and the relationships built, the Tai Chi for me was a pinnacle. It all started with that. So from that slow rhythm movement, the beauty of that master, the way she delivered things, to almost the Kung Fu and everything else speeding up a little bit more from there. But it all comes down to your balance and that focus. So, and I love the energy in that park. Just the old men on there showing off their beauty and their strength, to the kids playing, to the Zumba, to the Tai Chi, to the praying and meditating, and no clash of energy. That for me was just an amazing moment.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Jane. Thanks for making me remember that as well. So my question to you, before I answer the question as to my thoughts around it, is theoretically what it takes to move from magnetic storm to magnetic minds. You know that, but there's still a struggle in doing it, right? And you've now got, like, the management in place in magnetic storm as well, right? Which really helps too. What do you think it is that's continually keeping things kind of backed up and really driving things forward from your point of view?
So there's two answers to that. There's here's the facts answer, and then there's a real answer. The facts answer is we got back. We've just landed 2 phenomenal deals in magnetic storm. We've landed 2 major projects with just over 4 million rand, which is phenomenal. But we haven't got the full team to be able to run it. And Glenn and I both been running with those projects in the past, and the clients are saying, no, we need to run with it in the future. So as much as Lawrence, being the GM, has come in, he hasn't got the skills, the knowledge, or the expertise yet to run with it. So he'll run alongside us. But the big aha, and it came from our Crystal Circle conference, and we know it, we've been talking about it, is we haven't got the right team in magnetic storm. So the problem with not having the right team in magnetic storm is you can win great business, but you're not going to deliver on it. So we've got to fix them. The second part is the fear of letting it go, which is a self-inflicted fear more than a reality, because we were gone for 3.5 weeks and nothing burned down. In fact, we won business. So it's mindset. I know all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, Jane, I'm going to come back to you on some thoughts around all of that as well, right? Which is awesome. But that's really cool. You're halfway there. That's the exciting thing, right? So it basically starts with the mind, then it gets over to the set, right? So let's come over next to Anthony and Jackie, whose highlight is Navtech, continuing good growth, closed a few more contracts and on track for the year. 3 new starters accepted positions, onboarding new member of senior leadership team, who's also adding value. And for Jackie, positive initial response from planners for the farm project. Just need to negotiate some of the finer points. So what are the big questions? Number 1, how much is enough? If you were selling your growing business, where you can see the value in the future, what are the factors you would consider in sizing up any offers you might receive today? Also, number 2, if you realize that a lot of your good habits are starting to slide, how might you hit the reset button in a way that is likely to get you back on track with minimum disruption? And number 3, what questions might you ask to qualify a suitable accountant, financial advisor that can manage high net worth blue level individuals? Most of them are pretty reactive and don't get it, right? Which is very true, actually. So that's a way to actually work on that pathway as well. So here's what I'm going to ask. Because it sounds like everything's kind of moving in the right direction, which is good. Just to get a bit of a sense on timeframes, and I'd love to hear from both of you, actually, because again, like, we're at that point of the year where it's all about what's going to happen in 2019 now, because we're already halfway through the year. So I'd love to hear from you, Anthony, just in terms of Navtech. what, because obviously we've spoken anyway about what you're looking in terms of moving it to a position for sale. Are you on that? Anything changed in that area? And then after you've shared, I'd love to hear from you, Jackie, just in terms of current time frame for the farm project. All right. Hey, guys.
Hello. So with Navtech, things are moving forwards. It's good. It's got to the point where I can't talk about details now, so that's kind of a good thing. We've had an offer which we're strongly considering accepting, and we're just looking at different options. So we've gone out. It's kind of outside of a process. So we've gone out to a broker. We've asked them to do comparatives and things like that. Really, it's starting to get down into the detail, and things are moving kind of as we've discussed, really. So that's all positive.
Very cool, awesome. And how about for you, Jackie?
Yeah. So for the farm project, we are just in the final stages of getting our planning permission to be able to start doing any building on the land. So we just got a response from the planning, kind of the council, saying they need an extension, so we should know for sure by the end of September, but that they overall are on board with the general plan of everything. They're just not very happy with the location of some of the stuff that we've put in there, so we're just in the final negotiations of what we can exactly have and where to put it.
Awesome. Okay, fab. All right, well, all your questions are actually quite straightforward, so I'm going to be able to jump in and answer all of them without asking any questions on them. So that's cool. All right, so very, very cool. Thank you, guys. And I believe at this point we have covered everyone who is on our call here. So I know we're going to have some listening to the recording here as well. So I'm going to make sure I kind of go through these elements pretty thoroughly as I cover it. Let me share with you the fact that we have got, really like one very, very interesting theme on the whole call right now, and it's a new theme. It's not one that we've actually covered for at least 12 months on the call. So I'm going to share my screen here, and the theme that really kicks off with where Daniel's at. It's where Waldy's at. It's where Sophie's at. It's where Anthony and Jackie are at, which is coming back down to personal questions of your own conduct, right? I know I put yellow 3 on here, yellow 3, green 1, but I'm actually going to put the yellow 1 here because it's as relevant also for Glenn and Jane, right? Because it all comes back down to kind of and by the way, this is really important. It's like your actual identity has to keep going through a whole renewal process. We had a question actually on one of our enterprise calls, which is, do I believe in reincarnation? And I said, not just do I believe in it, I know it happens, right? I mean, I know for sure it happens. Because a lot of people think, reincarnation is just being born again, that's what it means. But a lot of people think you need to die to be born again, right? But my experience in life and my experience of people that I mentor that have the biggest shifts, there's a part of their old self which they leave behind, and there's no question they get born again. There's like, I'm a new person now. I'm showing up, and I'm showing up as a different person, and I'm going to now live a different life. And the moment they make that decision and they become the person that they're meant to be, it just opens up an entirely new doorway, and off they go. And it's almost unrecognizable from where they're at to where they go. And sometimes it takes for some people some like major shift. Sometimes it's a negative shift. Sometimes it's like a big health scare that happens. Sometimes it's a bankruptcy. It's and sometimes it doesn't take any of those negative things. It just takes a realization that is now time to change. We are all creatures of habit, and we all know about Newton's laws, right? And in Newton's laws, you've got these two things which are called inertia and momentum. As the law goes, right, something that is in motion will stay in motion, right, and something which is stopped will remain stopped. Just like that's just how the universe works. And so the real thing is, how do you shift from one thing to another? And especially given that all new things start in inertia, all new things, right? So if you're going to start something new and it's in inertia, you've actually got to give it a big push, which is difficult to do when you're already in another stream, which means you've got to kind of like step out of it. Effectively, it's almost like getting born again, right? So that whole idea of actually saying, am I ready for a new life? Am I willing to leave the old life behind is a major decision to make. And it was a large part of what happened on that. That's why there's such major shifts that happen on the I Ching Adventure, because there's such a large part which was about that and about the story and about seeing what other people in different worlds have done in the past. I mean, we even watched movies like The Last Emperor and The Last Samurai, which was all about that. It was about actually what is your story and when are you truly going to be ready to live it. So I'm going to start from there because like this is such an important part, right, on this area here. This then links into the likes of where Glenn and Jane are, which is like, well, we know it, but it's still kind of tricky to do it. You've got Daniel that's actually already made that shift to do it. And you've got some people like Anthony Jackie who says, hey, well, it's actually happening, but you can actually get too much of a good thing as well. It's like, well, it's all going well, but why don't we feel as kind of fulfilled or challenged as we could do, right? Like, so what can we do different about that? How can we change our habits to actually really lift ourselves to the highest level? And there's an element with Anthony, with Jackie, with Jane, which is and Wally actually, which is the trap of the comfort level, because comfort level is inertia, right? It feels like momentum because you're moving, but you're not actually moving any differently from how you were moving before. So it actually feels like you're stuck. You're stuck in a dream. And so that whole trap, which is like, well, it's too comfortable to really change anything. So I'm really aware that all movement happens as a result discomfort. We move when we actually are getting too uncomfortable and there's a discomfort in moving. And all growth happens when the discomfort of staying the same becomes greater than the discomfort of moving. So this is where you actually go, what's it going to take to make me feel so uncomfortable in just staying in the same situation that I just have to move? Even though it kind of like is a hassle to move, even though it's going to take effort to move, the thought of staying in the same place is actually even a bigger discomfort for me, right? So I have to move. And, one of the big things we did, the exercise where people started to see their legacy in the future if they were actually living their true self, and how many people you'd be impacting in the world if you were actually living at your full potential. And you go like, someone like, Richard would be looking at all those kids he could impact, right? Or Jane would be looking at all of those amazing entrepreneurs all over Africa that she could be impacting. Or Anthony could be thinking about all those incredible entrepreneurs.
I think we lost Roger, right? Yeah, Roger, you've cut out, if you can hear us.
Darius?
Yep, you're back on.
Okay, cool, awesome. So for every day that you actually put that off, they're suffering. They're the ones that get shortchanged. They're the ones that basically are having to wait longer for you to get to that point, right? And so when you actually get to the point, it's like, oh my God, who am I to actually be shortchanging these people, right? Like, why am I doing this? Like, other than the fact that I'm just more comfortable staying where I'm at and not living my true self. And when that becomes something which is so evident every day, you have no choice but to move. And then how quickly you move is incredible, right? Because off you go, right? And the whole universe opens up to make that happen. So, and that's what drives me every day, no question. It's like it's 2 a.m. here, and it's like I am so on it because I know that at the end of the day, the stories that I hear and the shifts that are happening in people's lives, and my ability to be a part of that magic is like what drives me. So there's no question that I'm doing the right thing at the right time. And when we're in that mode, you just know it, right? And then of course you're just like, you've got energy for every moment to actually just get stuff going. So I'm gonna kind of like, before I go further on these different aspects, I do want to start with this thought process. And I do want to start with these 3 things you've been hearing me talk about, which is about self-awareness, which is just being aware of yourself and who you are and what it is that you really, stand for. Self-mastery, which is this real, determination to make sure you're at your very best because you're aware of the fact that you're destined for greater things. And then self-expression, which is the way you then express this. And there's these 6 steps of self-expression, which you hear us go through again and again, especially at the Emerald level, right? Like the first one is definitely always come back to future vision. If you go ever so that's why I was kind of like stopping Sophie from going too far off in the Hong Kong company. It's like, this has nothing to do with your future vision. Why are you even talking about this, right? But there's a part of the ego which comes in where it's like, oh my God, all these people love me. They want to give me all this stuff. This is super awesome. And it actually is distracting you. And this is part of the road of trials, right? The road of trials is all about basically, if you're on the journey, you're going to get people trying to distract you. You're going to get basically those temptations. And it's all just a test to see, are you actually serious about what you're really trying to do here? Or can you get easily distracted onto other things? So future vision is about being really clear. This is my vision of where I'm going, and to not forget that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's very easy when you're at the beginning of a year, like in January, when you've written your future vision, to be right on it. But once you're 6 months in, like here we are in August now, once you're past halfway through the year, you've almost got to revise it and check in again and go, oh yeah, that's right. That's the thing I need to be thinking about, right? So do know the future vision is an ongoing thing to say, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to read it again. If each of you, after this call, went back and read your future vision from the end of last year, knowing you've only got right now 5 months until the end of this year, or 4 months now, really, 4.5 months, and saying, well, how many of the things that I put in my future vision are actually there now? Which ones am I actually behind on that I really should be doing right now? And should I already be thinking bigger? Like when I get to the end of this year, what do I want to write for my new future vision? And then really thinking in that way, right? Making that future vision non-negotiable is the next part, which is being super duper clear that it's like, I'm determined to make this happen. This is not like it might happen. It's like, this is going to happen even though I don't know how it's going to happen. And every day saying, hey, I'm behind on this again because I'm not even thinking about it because I'm busy doing other stuff, right? And I'm going to bring this back when it comes back to, commenting on some of the things that we have here as well. Communication, which is like reminding yourself by reminding others. So the way I remind myself about things like the World Game, right? Like I know when I get on stage this Thursday in Lake Tahoe, I'm going to be talking about the World Game. I'm going to be talking about what we're doing about it. I'm going to be talking about Genius U and how we're growing that. I'm going to be talking about the Genius partners we're bringing on board. Like I'm going to be talking about all these things to others, which every single time I talk about it, it's another public declaration. This is where we're heading. This is what we're doing. And every time I do that, it puts the commitment back on me to say, I better do those things. I'm telling everyone I'm going to do it. So communication comes before action. And if everyone sees that and then sees the actual conduct of you going through that, that makes all the difference. And after communication is culture and conduct. Lots of companies fall down because they get to step 3. People get to step 3, and then people come in the company, or they go, yeah, this person's just all talk. They're saying it, but they're not actually doing it, right? So your culture, your conduct, culture is, conduct is what you do when people aren't looking. Culture is what your team does when you're not looking. Right? So it's really about like, what's the DNA that's actually driving this? And is it linked to these first 3? Is it linked to the fact that everyone's pointing the first vision, everyone's non-negotiable, everyone's communicating to other people about it? If yes, then you've got the big tick box. Then it's all about self-expression through living by example, right? Actually like living that life that you're actually out there promoting to others, or living that life, which is the life that actually puts you right in that place where you're living your authentic self, and leading by example, which is then actually then stepping that up at a point where you're leading others as well. And then it comes back to self-awareness, self-mastery. This is an 8-step cycle, 6 steps of self-expression, then self-awareness, self-mastery, rinse and repeat. That kind of link through these as well. And every one of you is at a different level, and some of you have just gone through a pretty big experience of higher self-awareness, which now requires higher self-mastery, right? It requires you to actually step up to the next level to lead forward as well. So I just want to kind of like tie this back to one of the biggest learnings that I had on our trip. And what I'll do is I'll actually open up a couple of things. I'll open up, first of all, the Entrepreneur Fast Track. So we ran Entrepreneur Fast Track in Japan, which was great, a great experience. And in here, I was sharing some of the, some of the links to this as well. Here, let me get rid of this inspector. So this was like a ninja day, and then we actually had our samurai party, and then off we went with our, like everyone getting all dressed up in samurai outfits and so on. And for me, one of the biggest days was this day when we actually had the tea ceremony. So we'd already understood about I'd already been talking about the samurai code, right? And we'd been, in fact, I didn't go through the detail of it until after this at the Chris Circle conference. But basically this whole idea that, when we were actually looking at like the 1-inch punch, which we learned at Kung Fu, we saw I was standing there and he had this 1-inch punch where he almost hardly ever moved his fist. And I went flying back 6 or 10 feet. And he talked about how the punch didn't come from his fist. That actually, he hardly even moved his fist, right? It actually came from his hips, and more importantly, came from his ankles, which meant that the power was actually coming from the ground. It's coming from the universe. And it was just like his chi energy was just like right through his whole body. And he just pivoted his whole body. And then boom, like it was just this huge energy by just focusing on this one thing. And we saw the same equivalent of the 1-inch punch with the tea ceremony, which was putting that same focus and effort at an actual moment in time, which was just so exquisite. And the way that it was done, and the way that it had a ritual about it, and the way that it actually made that moment such a memory, which was obviously our entire experience of the whole trip. It's like it was starting with the end in mind. It was like how do we actually create a memory? In fact, even this whole thing here that happened, I was telling the team, like everyone who's there after it happened, that the actual place where we had the tea ceremony was actually a bonsai museum. And it hadn't had a tea ceremony there before. And the reason we ended up there was because I said to Penny and to Danny, like easily 6-7 months before the actual trip, I want us to have a tea ceremony, which is for all of us, all to be actually dressed, all to be actually in that like authentic experience. And they went to the travel company, and the company says, no, we can't do that. There's 60 people. You can't have a tea ceremony for 60 people. It's not been done. And we said, yeah, but if it was done, where would it be? Where would we do it? And it's like, well, there's no venue where you would actually have tea ceremonies. That no one organizes these. So we said, okay, well, if we broke this down and we started by saying, who could we get who could actually run a tea ceremony for us? Who would that be? And they talked about this like famous tea master that could come in, that they could actually do this tea ceremony. They could bring their group in to do it as well. But they said, but we wouldn't be able to do one group. We'd have to do multiple groups because, there's no one place we can go where we'd actually break it down. We said, well, what if there was a place? Where would it be? And they went hunting around everywhere, and they came back and says, look, we've actually found this place within this bonsai museum, and we've asked them if we can rent the space. And they said, yeah, you can rent the space. So we could bring the tea ceremony people in there, then we could actually have the space and we can do it there. I'm like, great, okay, solved. And then like, oh no, but we still can't do it. We're going to have to still break into 2 different groups. That's why. It's like, because there's no air conditioning. And it's like, well, what if we actually bring fans in? What if we can actually bring a portable air conditioner in? It's like, well, then I guess we could do it, but we don't actually have enough kimonos. Well, then why don't we go out and buy some kimonos? I'm like, it was one thing after another where it's like, can't be done, but what if it could? Can't be done, but what if it could? And eventually we ended up doing it, and it was this incredible experience. And pretty much the entire trip was that. It was this massive amount of effort into every memory or into everything that happened pretty much in every day. And if you think about any kind of company or anything where you've had great experiences, you never see all that background work that goes into it. And frankly, most of us try and take the shortcut as opposed to say, what's the end result we're actually trying to create? And I was doing it as much for me, right? I knew we were going to run this event once. We're never going to do it ever again. And what happened was we started spurring entrepreneurship across the board, right? When we went and said, we're going to do a Kung Fu session, and they're like, we don't have anyone's going to do Kung Fu for 60 people. We said, but what if we could find someone? And the person we found, a Kung Fu master, he's never done a program for that size group before. So, he had his own photographers there. He was like, wow, maybe I should do more of this. We said, we want to find real samurai that can actually teach us samurai. They actually found these guys that actually had their own samurai kind of like, secret, like, society, which was actually in a training center. And we actually got them to do this for us. And afterwards they were saying, you know what, maybe we should do more of this, right? And maybe we should be charging for it and stuff like this. Like in every single case, we opened up opportunity where then people then were left behind thinking, God, this is a real opportunity because it obviously worked really well with us. And that was the whole process that we went through the entire trip. And for me, it was about making those real specific little steps. But what was really powerful about this was the fact that in this experience, that was when we had our biggest learning. This thing here, which says Ichigo Ichi, which means treasure every meeting, for it will never occur again. Right? It's like it was such a powerful concept of the transition of time. And that you had these 1,000-year-old bonsai trees where, like, the owner, who is a ramen millionaire, he basically was like there saying to some of the team, the reason I work like 12, 15 hours a day on my bonsai trees is that some of these trees have lived for 1,000 years, right? I mean, that's like you're talking like 100 generations, right? That's gone through, and all those people are looking after this tree, and it's going to be looked after for 100 generations after me, and they'll be looking after the tree. And so it's my obligation, right, to make sure that this tree continues, because it's basically going to let down so many people before and after me if I don't look after it, right? I was the link in the chain. So that whole element of that like sacred duty. If you think of your job here while you're here on this planet is a sacred duty, and entrepreneurs are the modern day samurais, right? It's like we're the ones that actually have that ability to actually live up to that level in a way that most of the rest of the world don't. And so from that kind of like energy that we actually had and we experienced, that kind of like played out as a kind of a double up on what happened in Kyoto, where we had Mr. Ikai, who was Yayoi's mentor, who was saying very much the same thing when it came to the length of companies in Japan. So this was talking about how to make a company go bigger. It was about how to make a company last longer, right? So it's really not about your exit strategy. It's about your success strategy. It's your longevity, which is because it was all relation back to time. And he was talking about how over 33,000 companies in Japan are over 100 years old. There's over 7 that are 1,000 years old, and there's over 50% of all the companies in the world that are over 200 years old are all in Japan. And he said that, in most countries you have ruins, right? Like in Egypt, you have the pyramids. In, Europe or in England, you've got like Stonehenge or, like Roman ruins. Whereas in Japan, there's no ruins, right? And the reason there's no ruins is that it's just part of the mindset of the Japanese to always be sustaining for the next generation. You're always thinking in 100 years, 1,000 years. And so, of course, you're spending a lot more time, preserving what you've got, right? And so that whole concept, right? If you actually, take the word, persevere, right? And just link persevere to preserve and link preserve to serve. And just see just this connection in terms of what we're actually doing or the reason we're doing it to be in the name of service, right? Those people who are the most in the name of service are the ones persevering the hardest. So if you're like, why am I not driving myself forward yet? It's because you're not yet coming from a place where you actually are putting your own creature comforts ahead of service, right? Because there's sacrifice involved as well. So of course, a lot of people don't do it, which is why most people don't get to greatness. Not that everyone couldn't, it's just that most people choose not to. And so if you take that as that's the hero's calling, right? To be the hero's journey. So the thing that I wanted to share, which links this all together, which kind of like takes this to a high level of kind of mentorship in terms of us talking about the different day-to-day things we're looking to work at right now, is to come over to what we went through at the Crystal Circle conference, right? So what happened there was I talked about the next trip. And by the way, for those of you who missed the last trip, we're pretty much filling up on this next trip. So I don't think we're going to try and publicize it too much. But this is what's happening next year. We've got a 9-day journey to India, Nepal, and Tibet. We've already got, about the same number, about 60 people already booked up for the trip. And we were trying to make it smaller, but it's already built up. And this is and it's all just Crystal Circle members again. Journey of Light, 9-day adventure where we're starting on Deepa Valley in Delhi, going to Red Fort. This is the 9 chakra levels, right? From night, 7 colors, day, right? And so we're actually starting here, with the Festival of Lights. Go to Red Fort, see Mahatma Gandhi's tomb, learning the history of India's independence, Taj Mahal, seeing how that then actually created the amazing architecture in India. Got to Kathmandu, Nepal, then to Patan, birthplace of Buddha. Go up to Nagakot, which is where we're actually going to trek along the trail that can see the entire Himalayas. There's Everest there that you actually see from Nagakot. And then fly, which very few people do, from Nepal to Tibet. You can only get into Tibet if you're in a group, so that's how we get in. And we go to Lhasa, we go see Potala Palace, we meet up with Tibetan monks. So this is getting up to Alchemy Prism now, right? So Enterprise Prism, Alchemy Prism, and then we end up basically Himalayan Flow, which is where we're actually on the whitewater rafting trip down the Himalayas. And then for those who want to stay, which looks like quite a lot of the people, we're going to do a 4-day trip to Everest Base Camp, which is on the Tibetan side, where most people go on the Nepalese side. So it's really super rare for us to be able to do all of this, but really super exciting, right? That it links us up to the next level as well. And we're going to basically see that all the story of Buddha and where we ended up, because the Himalayas actually flows into the Yangtze River. So when we're in Shanghai, for example, biggest city in the world, it's at the other end of the entire river, right? Compared to where it started, which is Himalayas. And so we've actually got we're going upstream instead of downstream, basically, for this next trip. And all of that links back to this, which is the Eightfold Path. So basically, like Buddha, one of the biggest things here, and this is, I think, it's why more and more entrepreneurs are looking to Eastern practices instead of Western practices. Not just talking about things like culture and understanding, the laws of nature, but even things like, Scrum, Agile. These are all things that come out of Japan, and they all come out of the same code, right? Because basically in the West is generally defined by what you shouldn't do. So, for example, take a religion like, Christianity is about the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments are not about what you should do, it's about what you shouldn't do. Or take basically the legal system, which is not about what you should do, it's about what you shouldn't do. So everyone's very clear as they're growing up, what are the things they shouldn't do? They're not so clear of what they should do. It's not actually here's what you do to actually lift yourself to become a great human, right? It's just, here's the things you should not do in order to be a bad human. Whereas in the East, it's all about what to do, right? It's basically something like the Eightfold Path is an actual step-by-step to really to become present for each of the 8 steps, which link to the 8 different journeys, and it links to the 8 profiles. It links basically to this, which is the Confucius family, which is the father, mother, and then the 3 brothers, 3 daughters. And so this basically is starting with right view. And if we actually do a quick link to this, right, because I linked this for those at Crystal Circle around their own lives. But what I didn't do at that point was link this back to your journey of your business and the journey of your actual story, right? Because we actually did that with the vector cards. And so that's where we went through the 8 different stories, which many of you have done if you've been to Masters. But this basically is about the fact that every one of them starts at this first step, which is right view. So right view is the same as a future vision. So if you actually take that idea of right view, and then you actually go from right view to right resolve. Like right resolve is all about determination. It's like, start with the vision, right? And it's being really clear your vision of who you're going to be, right? Which is basically these are the 8 steps of enlightenment, right? It's like, this is Buddha, right? So it's like, you start with that right view. And from him, it was like, sitting under the banyan tree, right? It's like starting from that space and actually seeing the world and what it's all truly about, and actually getting really clear about that and being present to that. Right resolve is now actually having a determination to move in a particular way. Right speech is about how you then communicate that in a way that you're not communicating anything but the right view and right resolve, right? And then from that right speech, right conduct is how that then shows up in your actions. Right livelihood is about how that then shows up in your life. And right effort is how that actually shows. So someone like Jane, she's like, oh, I've got the vision. I think I've got the determination. I've got lots of reasons. I'm even saying the right thing. Where's it going wrong, right? And it's going wrong down here. It's like the conduct's not yet matching the vision. Like the livelihood in terms of your life is, what you're doing for your time is not matching what that conduct should be, and the effort's not matching because it's actually getting redirected into the wrong area. I'll pull someone like Sophie back because it's like, hey, you're moving too far off the track. You've got a great vision now, and you're actually getting the communication and conduct in place now. But then it's actually then going off track again. So right view means right for you, right? It's personalized and it's right for you. And then you get to right mindfulness, which is then reflection on where you're at. And then it's right union, which is basically samadhi. It's like enlightenment, where you just dissolve your body and realize it was just about the spirit all along, right? So that 8-step process that you go through is the 8-step process entrepreneurs actually are going from one form or another. And you've heard me say this in the past, like, your role and your job, as mine is as an entrepreneur, is not to create more technology, it's to create more humanity. Technology is taking care of itself. It's growing anyway. But our role is to actually really build consciousness, which is actually to build humanity as well. And what was really cool, and I went looking for more research on this, but I think a lot of people at the moment, while it's really obvious that there is a pathway between India, China, and Japan, because most people are focused at a particular area, most haven't yet seen that connection in the same way. When I first started talking about the I Ching being linked to psychometric testing, there was very little of anyone else saying it, whereas now everyone's talking about it, right? And I think that as time goes on and more people translate things in Chinese and Japanese and Indian, they see all these links because so many of the texts are still in the localized language and they're still not online yet. But basically the biggest link is a link in our trip from the Buddha Eightfold Path and the Samurai Code. So the Bushido 8 Virtues is the Samurai Code, right? Which are these ones here. So rectitude is directly linked with right view, right? Rectitude is like uprightness. It's like making a stand. It's like, here's where I am, here's where I'm going. It is integrity, but it's integrity with a vector. It's integrity with a direction to say, here's what we're making a stand for. So that's rectitude, which links directly to right view. Courage links directly to right resolve, right? It's like courage and determination are interlinked. Right speech is not about you projecting onto others. It's you listening and then collecting the common words of everyone, and as a result, being of service to everyone. And that's benevolence. So it's really about coming from that space where you're actually coming for others as opposed to coming for yourself. And then from there, you've got right conduct, which another word for that is politeness is the wrong translation. Like in Japanese, it actually means more, you get it when you're in Japan, when they bow deeply, like you say, well, that's polite, but it's actually something much deeper than that as well. And it really comes back down to right conduct, which is that deference to others. Right livelihood gets linked directly to sincerity, right, which is actually like living your truth in terms of who you are. And then honor directly links to right effort, which is honoring that process and actually coming from a place which is down at the level of water, right, as opposed to coming from a place of ego or a place of like, look what I've done, or a place of pride, right? So coming from that space, and then right mindfulness, which is about then reflecting on all of it and actually seeing the work that you've done and realizing it's part of a wave that you're actually surfing. So you don't know if you're the one creating the movement or the movement's creating you. That comes back down to loyalty, right? That you're actually interconnected with where you're going. And then the final part, which is self-control, that's this part here, which is right union. These directly link, by the way, with the things that I shared earlier. So if I come back to this, when I'm talking about like the first step, self-expression, future vision, future vision is right view, right? And like non-negotiable, making it non-negotiable, that's right resolve. And, you know, communication, how you communicate with others, obviously, and then from their culture, conduct, that's all linked to these. And then you now living by example and leading by example are linked directly to these two here, right livelihood, right effort. Self-awareness is mindfulness. And then the final one, right union, self-mastery. This is about actually getting to that point, you know, it's about self not being your body, it's about self being your spirit, and linking to that as well. So what does that look like when you link all of this? So I mean, that was just giving you a bit of an overview without, I mean, I'm trying to compress like two weeks, 24/7 into, you know, like 20 minutes. But basically, if you take that as a base and know that this is something which goes back thousands of years, and we're really the modern day samurai, right? So it's up to us to actually continue on that journey. And everyone's going to be trying to shoot us down, right? So if you actually think, okay, what's going to be that's going to like be at that point where we're coming from that space where we're holding on to that vision, that dream, what does that look like as we kind of go through with each person their focus and what they're looking at? I'll start with Sophie here, right? So Sophie's best focus is we can pull out of her vision where she's actually wanting to really bring Sweden to the world, and at the same time, really kind of bring self-expression, everything to do with arts, more than just the music, but in real self-expression for everyone there, and the best that Sweden has to offer, and then connect that to the rest of the world. Very similar to what Yayo is doing. And Yayo's done such a great job because she stayed really focused on it as well. I think, Sophie, the more you interconnect with Yayo and say, what I'm doing in Sweden is the same as what you're doing in Japan, and let's actually get someone who's a shining star in every one of the different countries to be doing the same as well, right? You're going to find them one by one in different countries and create this amazing kind of like constellation around the world. And that's what your vision is. That's where you should be going. And so how do you then actually make sure that if you have an opportunity coming out of left field, that is one that actually fits in with what you want to do? Don't get carried away because someone's actually saying, I'm going to give you all this amazing stuff and we're amazing, which means if you work with us, we're going to be amazing as well. But instead actually say, okay, well, show me your plan of where you want to go. Show me how I can be of value to you, right? Show me what you believe is the growth of this company. What's it doing right now revenue-wise? What's it doing profit-wise? And what do you see it doing for the future? And give me your plan to show me all that. I think, we didn't have that plan yet, or I will work on that later. Say, look, I'm too busy doing all the things I'm doing. I'm very flattered that you're asking me. I think it could be great to work with you as well. But right now I'm working on things that actually are delivering a real result to me. And most importantly, is creating cash flow, which is actually allowing the whole thing to grow. Right? Because I'm very sure they're saying, I'll give you 20% because that means they don't have to pay you any cash and you have to show up for a bunch of stuff. And there's probably not a lot of stuff on the ground at the moment. That's not what you need to be having to distract you right now. So by you actually then saying, right, just get the evidence of it. And then for you to actually make that decision, is it the right thing based on where you currently see your time focus for you to be putting your time? My personal feeling is that when you actually look at the things that you're doing and say what actually fits into this right now, it's going to be much more to do with what you're doing to actually fill up the events that you're running. And it's going to have everything to do with the plan you're putting together, which I'm going to get to in a moment when I actually get to Glenn and Jane. So I'm going to cover each one by one, get to Glenn and Jane, where I'm going to pause and actually go through what the 5 key steps are that every one of you should be following. And then from there, I'll then move on to Joel and Richard and Kerry as well, right? Here, let's go over to Wally, right? Best way to work with other CC members. Very much the same thing, where if you actually start by saying, okay, what is it that I'm looking to do with my time and my money? Okay, so really super important that as you're going forward, you need to be saying, is this actually worth my time in the first place? Be really aware that your time, I'm going to just do a quick refresher on this. I think it's really important. Your time is all going to come down to ROTI, right? So ROTI is return on time invested. Okay, so it's not return on investment, it's return on time invested. You've got a limited amount of time. So for each, and I've said yellow level because each of you are actually talking about your identity, and your identity is determined by your time. Okay, so what you constantly do is who you become. So off the back of this, return on time invested, there are 3 different ways that you calculate this. The first one is earned time. So you might be at the point where it's like, right, I've got my goals of how much I'm going to be earning, right? I've set my goals for every 3 months. So first of all, if I'm going to be working with other CC members, is there an income I'm going to be generating from this by doing this, right? So is it part of my earned time? Earned time generally is as simple. It's just what is your dollars per hour? It's like, so if you're actually doing mentoring, if you're actually going to show up as a director, how much are they going to be paying you for that, right? Of course, it still needs to fit into your vision of where you want to go, right? But fundamentally, think about it in terms of linking with your Ikigai, where Ikigai is all about, is this something which I am good at, which is my talents? If it's my talents, do I love it, which fits my passions? Is it something that the world needs, which fits my purpose? And most importantly, is it something which actually puts money in my pocket, right? Which is something that I can actually earn from. right? And that's it, right? And so this one here is like, am I actually earning what I need to earn off this? If the answer is no at this point, then it's not right for me right now. I'll come to it later. There's a second type of time, right? Which, because you're earning your dollars per hour is only going to go to so much. So maybe you can make $100 an hour. Maybe it's like showing up for a board meeting once a month, and it's $300 an hour, whatever that happens to be. But the second type of time is promotion time. And whenever you are in doubt to say, why don't I have a focus? Guaranteed it's because you're not running a promotion, 100%. Because if you're running a promotion, you already have got a focus for the week. You know what you're trying to achieve. You know what your next steps are. You're reporting to a team that's actually making sure they're keeping you on track. There's no question that you're focused. But if you don't have a promotion, you're not going to be focused, right? So this comes back down to the importance of having a promotion. So promotion time is when you go, well, wait a minute, I'm not getting paid by the hour at the moment because I'm actually spending time on a promotion. So someone like Wally could say, well, I'll work with a CC member. Maybe I'll work together with Doran, for example, where I'll work with him on actually launching a new product where I'll be on the green energy side with him. So you go down this path where you're going to work on the green energy side with him. You say, okay, what's our goal here? Our goal is that we're going to put in 3 months of time. We're going to go out there. We're going to get a couple of new contracts. That's going to make us $100,000. It's like, great, that's fantastic. So you go, okay, wait, how much of my time am I actually putting into this? It's like, all right, well, in my dollars per hour, this is my earned time. I know I'm actually taking a salary, which maybe is something like, $100 an hour. Promotion time, we're going to make $100,000. If we split it 2 ways, we're making $50,000 each. And if I'm putting into it 50 hours, well, that means that my time is 50 hours to make 50,000. I won't make it now. I'll make it if I'm successful at the promotion. So there's now got to be a predictability for the future, right? But if I can do that, right, 50 hours is going to make me my 50,000. Well, obviously that means that I'm now at $1,000 an hour. So you suddenly realize, like, wow, I make a lot more money from promotions than I make for my earned time, which means that I should find someone else to be my general manager so I can go off and start running the promotions, right? If you're not doing it this way, you'll always be stuck in earned time, just basically using your time. Like if Jane does this and goes, holy cow, we just went, like our team went and actually just got this extra revenue without our help when we thought maybe they couldn't, and they actually did it. Now we think we have to go in there and actually deliver on it. Well, if we were to pay someone else to deliver on it, right? Or if we just said to our general manager, because that's his job, you go find someone else to deliver on this, on the basis that he might fail, but also on the basis that we're actually okay with that because we're putting our time into growing our next business, which is Magnetic Minds. And we know that if we ran a promotion on Magnetic Minds, we're going to be making $100,000, right? We're going to make ourselves $1,000 an hour. That's way more success for our time than actually working back on Magnetic Storm. So we're not going to keep on getting sucked back into Magnetic Storm or giving ourselves those 3 yellow level excuses, which is no one can do it as good as I can, which is the first excuse, or I can't afford to find people as good as me, or I don't have the time to train up people as good as me, right? And once you actually realize, no, that's actually all false. It's just me wanting to feel special to keep on getting involved, like the company needs me. When if I was to look at every other company in Johannesburg and realize that there's over 100,000 other companies and I'm not going and working for any one of them, what makes me keep on going back to this one company out of 100,000 and keep on saying they need me, right? It's like, it's just an illusion that you think they need you, and they might actually fail without you, but the company won't fail. It'll keep on growing and they'll figure it out for themselves, right? But as long as you keep on showing up, it's like a parent that keeps on showing up for the kid's never going to learn, and it means it's never going to grow. So at some point, you actually got to say, I've got to actually replace myself with something at a high level. And then you've got investment time, right? And that's when you go, wait, hang on, if I actually build a new business, like for Daniel to say, right, I'm going to build this new business like Source, or Joel to say, right, I'm ready to build this new business. At that point, you say, well, how much is that business going to make in terms of an ongoing river? Not just one promotion, but an ongoing basis. So when I started looking at things like Entrepreneur Resorts, and I said, okay, we've got a plan for Entrepreneur Resorts. I can see this is going to become a business that's going to be worth over 50 million in the next 5 years. I'm going to have half the business, right? So that's 25 million in my pocket. How much of my time would it actually going to take to help set this business up to make it work? And I said, well, it's probably going to take me at least 250 hours. And that was my number. And I said, right, 250 hours. I'm going to spread that out over the year. I'm going to put that time in. And if I can do that, that means every one of those hours, 250 hours, is worth to me $100,000, right? Which is really significant, right? So then from that point of view, then you're like, oh, okay, now every single hour that I'm working on it, I finish the hour and I go, well, that was worth $100,000. And I move one step forward, and anything I'm doing that actually is paying me a lot less than that, I've really got to question it heavily and say, is there a reason I'm still doing this, right? And it really limits how much mentoring I can do. It limits how much I can spend on other companies. And it's just the way that I then am able to then say, here's what I need to delegate out to. Because what I'm now doing is I'm taking, the next couple of years, And I think it's safe to take 3 to 5 years of what you project. And the more predictable it is, the better that you're actually going to make in a particular company. Maybe, Daniel says, well, with Source, I don't want to run it myself. But if I work out my plan, and I've got my 5-year plan together, or like Richard and Kerry doing that with their business, they could say, well, I can really see that this is going to be worth over $2 million to me, as an example. I reckon it's going to take me probably about somewhere in the region of maybe 200 hours to actually work on this, to actually get the team in place and get it going. But if I can do this right and I can use those 200 hours, well, that means that every one of those hours is now worth $10,000 to me, right? So then again, you multiply by 10. So the way to times 10 the value of your time is always by shifting up to the next level. And by the way, this earn time obviously is orange level, promotion time is yellow, green level, investment time is blue and above, right? So this forces you to actually go up the actual lighthouse as you're going as well. So keep this in mind, because most of us are totally undervaluing ourselves. And then we're just going and doing a bunch of stuff where we easily could find someone else. There are 2 big costs here, right? The first one is your replacement cost, right? So because at the end of the day, if you know you can actually get somebody for like $50 an hour to do the job that you're doing at the moment, and you could actually be freeing that time up and going out and doing something at $1,000 an hour, well, that means that every hour is costing you $950 where you're actually overpaying, or you're actually then missing out on what you could be doing, which is your opportunity cost, right? So when you actually get these costs are huge costs, but they're invisible, which means if you're not actually putting it right in front of your face, you're going to miss it altogether. And then you're going to go back to what you actually already know, even though you've got a bigger vision, right? So be really super, super aware that what creates success is not your goals, because goals will just create frustration. If you weren't on the crystal circle, if you're blissfully unaware of your potential, you would be a lot less frustrated when you're not doing things than being on crystal circle, being aware of your potential, and then not doing anything about it, right? So you can set bigger goals, and it just creates frustration, because goals are things that you reach for, right? It's like having a higher ceiling when you're trying to reach the lights, and now you've got a higher ceiling, which is like exciting because it means you've got like more potential. When you're reaching for it, even though it feels good to stretch, you're never going to actually hit. You're never going to get there because it's too high. Standards, on the other hand, are what you settle for. So standards are where your feet are, not where you're reaching. So it's what you're standing on. So if you have a ladder and you start actually stepping up the ladder, you're raising your standards. At some point, you're going to hit the ceiling. And so this is what you settle for. And so really super important that all success does not come from just raising your goals. It comes from raising your goals and then raising your standards to reach your goals. That's the whole point of the I Ching adventure, is we didn't go around seeing more and more people having bigger goals. We went around seeing people having a higher and higher standards, where they're saying, I'm not going to settle for just trying to diffuse my energy everywhere. I'm going to focus at this one thing. I'm not going to settle for basically just going and swigging back a Starbucks coffee. I'm going to spend an hour at a tea ceremony. It's that difference of actually saying, I'm actually going to take more time on things. I'm going to do them properly, and I'm going to do them because it actually means something. And when you come from that space and that energy, totally different energy, right? So it really is about going, holy cow, I've got bigger goals, but what I actually need to do now is to raise my standards, which means more focus, more clarity, more of these 8 things, right? More of the right view, more of the right conduct, and just keep meditating on those 8, right? And you'll always be able to see where you're going wrong, because you can see it's wrong conduct, it's wrong effort, right? And then again, say, that's what I'm going to focus at now and actually get it right. And the best way to get any one of those right is get yourself around other people that are getting it right. And we saw that with the Tai Chi, we saw that with the Kung Fu. It's like you're around other people that are just focusing at the same thing. It just comes naturally, right? If you're in that environment as well. And community is just a human environment. So getting the right people around, getting the right environment around is absolutely critical going forward as well. So with that being said, if we actually go from what we heard with Sophie, you heard what I'm saying with Wally as well. Best way to work with our Christoph members is to say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it out first, right? I'm going to do an MVP. I'm going to start with just 1 or 2. Take an example of someone like Jacqueline, where Jacqueline's already done this with her mom's business. She's doing it to a couple of other companies. She says, I'm going to actually take, first of all, some kind of a payment for being of value within this, or run a project together with someone. And I say, this is worth my time because it actually fits my vision of what I want to do. And I'm going to work with them too. Then I'm going to grow forward in that particular area. Then you're already running. Linked to the green community, we've already got, as you can see, a lot of people in the green community side, and it's about you deciding, am I ready to connect up with them? So Angie's done this in education, and that's how she ended up running Genius School. So I'm going to bring other people in education together. You saw the likes of Elaine do this together with Yvette, where they're now doing this specifically for women's leadership. And now I'm connecting them to all the other women leaders. So for you just saying, right, I'm going to actually set a circle up on Genius U. I'm going to invite all the Chris Circle members I know that already are green businesses to come along and actually get connected up as well. You know, you got that vibe when you're around that table. You can get that vibe every single day by actually bringing that group together. Or you can even just go on Genius U and already look for the actual environment groups, get connected up with them, and already you're in that space every single day as well. That's the way that you actually go about doing that. In the case of Daniel, right? Some very specific questions here, but it still comes down to yellow one, because you're in a space right now, which is a really good space to be in, where you can actually replicate based on what already other people are doing well, right? Because you're going down this master trainer route and say, okay, how do I actually really set my standards at a level where I'm really lifting it up to be at the same level as others that already are out there creating a substantial business that's actually using talent dynamics, wealth dynamics to do that too. So just a couple of examples. We can go, I put everyone's pages on here as well, right? So, and I've dropped the links to all of them on here too. So they're all on here at the moment. But if we go, for example, here, I'll just open up a few, right? So let's go to someone like Paul Evans, right? So you can go to Paul Evans' site here. And the first thing is he put together his own personal website, first of all, right? So very much like the same way that I say, right, have your own personal website. I have my personal website. So this is Paul's website here, right? Here's Paul. Here's him talking to you, saying what he's all about. So this is the very first thing to do if you're really saying, right, I've actually got an identity now that I really want to share, right? Who I am and what I actually do to make a stand for others. And just having that as a first step is absolutely critical for where you're going. And then from there, like in Paul's case, he would have something like Team Dynamics, which is his company, which is now, here's my company, here's how I now deliver on the things that I'm actually doing there. Plus you can have other companies as well. So for example, you know, in your company, you can have Source as one company. You can have, you know, your company and come up with a great brand that you're happy with for the company as well. But just get those 2 pages set up. And even before you do that, get your LinkedIn profile updated so people know you're a master trainer, know what your folks are doing. And you can see here, this then links to all the things that are out there. So you can actually model off this kind of a platform already. So you already have an idea of what am I looking to create and what am I looking to actually grow in terms of my own personal branding, which is like a really super important first step to go to really start like lifting yourself up next level. Yayoi does exactly the same thing, right? So you can go look at Yayoi. You got me and the way I do that. And some of the other master trainers are already doing this as well. So someone like, you know, Stephanie Allen, who's in the US is doing this really well. You've got a number, like there's quite a number of other people that are doing the same. You can just go to anyone who's out there already who's leading the way in their field and saying, okay, what are they doing? And you're going to find they have a personal site. They've got a company site. And off the back of that, you can already be saying, right, that's where I'm going to get started. I'm going to start building up my brand now so people already know me. And I'm going to see that as well. That's the very first thing to do. Second thing is on the GEM support group, 100%. You could already be saying, right, for people that are in the UK that actually want to get connected up and have an extra session, you're going to run that extra session with them. You can actually charge people and bring people onto that in the future, but even getting a critical mass of people in the UK that actually want to be on there to begin with allows you to test it out and see what extra value you deliver. Speak to someone like Tamami. She's done a really awesome job. She was the first to do it, actually, where she will take even the Crystal Circle group that she runs, and she'll run a separate session with them, and she knows exactly what they're looking for, what's the extra value she can bring in, and so it does a really great job actually looking after them. Connect up with Jan, obviously, where Jan's doing exactly the same thing, where he's actually now, again, you know, in terms of like providing support for the ones in Czech Republic. By you providing that too, and then saying, okay, I'm actually going to bring on board more people into GEM as well, you'll find that we have got people coming on board already where we'll be saying, all right, Daniel, we'll pass people your way that are the right people that should be joining right now. You can have a conversation with them, get them booked up. You're then earning money from all of that, building a relationship with them. And then, of course, it's very easy for you to get those extra one-to-one clients or even your group sessions as well, right? So it's just about those very first steps. Yellow one, walk through the Genius U micro degree where it actually talks about how to actually make sure you got your website set up properly, that you're actually now kind of like making a stand in the right way that then leads you to master your market number 2. And I think it's for some of you that I put yellow 1 next to, just walk through the same micro degrees because you might have done it in the past, but you're in a different place now, right? So you're in a much, much better place to then actually really focus to put those together. Biggest tips for one-to-one training now you've got started is practice. More than anything else, it's just continually doing it, right? And in doing it, one thing you'll hear me do at every call is I'm always getting focused at what is the biggest challenge, because you can talk about all sorts of stuff, but it's not relevant to somebody is not something that's going to actually give them enough value. But if it's something that links directly back to something they can apply, the only way they can do that is by you knowing what's their biggest problem. And the only way that can happen is that they know what their biggest problem is. Frankly, most people, when you first meet them, they haven't even thought about those elements. So I know even the experience of having to actually, complete something like the spreadsheet to say, well, what was my biggest highlight? What was my biggest challenge? That in itself helps order your thinking, right? So just going through that kind of a process where you're really getting people to put the work in themselves to really get clear what is it that's most focused for them, and then going through that process yourself and getting feedback from them as well in terms of what it is that they're going to apply, what they're going to actually use moving forward. Those are the biggest things, is organizing the program you run in such a way that you don't have to come up with the content, but what you're doing is coming up with the clarity, which are two very different things. And clarity tends to happen much more by organizing other people's thoughts and organizing your own thoughts. So that's would be my biggest tips. And best way to build brand reputation, well, I kind of said it already, is actually getting those pages out and running. And then from there, building your brand off the back of it. And know that there's others out there that are doing this too. You can be very proactive, like hearing what they're up to, giving them suggestions based on what other people are that you're connected to as well. There's nothing stopping you from being the most connected master trainer of all the master trainers by just checking in with different city leaders and saying, hey, just calling up to say, ran the Master Trainer program. I know the latest things going on within Genius U. I'm actually now going to be, running some of these different programs. I wanted to give you an update on some of the things that came up during July, because many of them haven't had that update themselves, and also find out what value, what support you're looking for, or what value I can bring to you, because I'm speaking to all the different trainers. And I'm doing this additional to what you're already getting from Kathleen, from Michelle, and I'm doing this in a way that really I just want to add that extra value in for you as well. And you'll find that they're all going to be grateful for the call. They're all going to find a way to then actually find some value in the things that you're doing as well. And it's just getting yourself out there with those groups, which is going to make you then very well known. And it's really what the top people that in any network has always done, is just reaching out to the right people and being of value, which you know how to do anyway, right? So that's basically, again, getting into the middle of a stream and then growing that stream as well. Coming over, I'm going to come down to Anthony and Jackie, then I'm going to come over to Glenn and Jane, as I said. In terms of how much is enough, I'm hoping that what I've already shared with this already kind of like describes it. When you've got a really clear picture of what your true potential is and when you're going to achieve it and which level you're going to achieve it in, which is why I was asking, how long it's going to take to do certain things. And then from there to say, anything that serves you to move towards that, that's enough, right? Because too many people hold on to something that might be the wrong thing just because they think they can squeeze more out of it. When in fact, what that's really doing is coming back down to replacement cost and opportunity cost, especially opportunity cost. The longer you're doing something which you know is not exactly the right thing, basically is another month or another year away from actually getting to your full potential. And Daniel is such a great testament to that. He's like, holy cow, since I actually just freed myself up from what I knew I shouldn't be doing, everything's taken off, right? You've heard Sophie say the same thing, right? So there's no question that the moment that happens, you can very quickly get to 10 times the results, which is really a key part to it as well. And knowing always that whatever you're getting from the past, there's always more to be able to actually achieve from the future, right? Once you actually lift up to the next level. So I would say that, put down your criteria, like what is it that is actually the right tick-off points to say, right now it's time to move to the next thing. And know also that your barrier to leave what you're doing becomes much lower when the attraction of what you're going to do becomes much higher. So whenever I'm getting stuck in something where I'm like, I'm still spending too much time managing this team, or I'm spending too much time thinking this is too important to do. Like events is a good example. It's like, I'm spending all this time basically making sure the event's okay and everything. Well, what happened where I don't even worry about the events anymore, where the whole team has just taken over and they've driven it? Yes, it was me letting go for the whole thing. So, right, you guys just run it. But a large part of it was that I had other things to get onto, which I was actually more excited about. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go into those things, right? I'm spending more time now on Genius U because I can see the growth there. I'm spending more time now on our new concept we're going with, which is our city hubs, where after China, when we saw what was happening, we've got these things coming up now, which are our Genius City Hubs, where we saw basically in China the co-working growth. And like we went to see WePlus, and WePlus has just gone and created 20 units within 3 years, and we were wanting to get 50 units in 5 years, but they've done it so quickly because they're doing it through cities, and we're like, you know what, it's not too late for the co-working space, and we've got a really cool model using Genius Cafe. Genius Cafe is now the #1 cafe and restaurant in all of Sonora. We went to #1 within 2 years. We could do that within all the cities by actually taking the co-working model and not charging for the space, but charging for basically the food, the drink, the events, mentoring, and actually building a really solid community using all of our language where people would much rather come to us and not having to pay $1,000 a month that we work, and then getting all this super extra benefit, and we'd actually have a much higher profitability out of it because we've figured out how to do that with the cafes. And so off the back of that, it's like, right, let's do it. Let's get a London one set up. Let's get one set up in Singapore. And so we're like rolling off in a different direction, but one that actually takes us to our plan where we'll hit all our numbers faster by going through that pathway. And so we're holding really tight to the vision. So when we talk about what is non-negotiable, you should be like, having minimum flexibility with the vision, and maximum flexibility with the execution, right? It's like, if you find a better way, right, to get to that vision, right, then go with it, right? And don't get stuck and say, but that's not how we do things. And we're seeing that happen. So for example, with Angie on the Genius Schools, she was like, okay, I've got to get these camps going because camps are the next step. And then we're going to do these micro camps. And then she's had these people come along to say, we want to do schools. Let's get the school started. We'll fund the school. We'll grow the school. And she's like, no, that's part of our plan next year. And then, just through the thinking, it's like, wait a minute, why is it next year? If they want to fund it, if they're ready to do it, if we've got the career, why not do it now? And just by actually saying yes, now we've got already Pat in Thailand, who's already like, right, we're going to launch it in Thailand at the actual event happening in September. We're going to have our first school launch in Phuket. We're already going to actually like launch it as a co-working space, as a school. We're going to go out there and actually have the educators go, and we're going to fund it, right? And so it's how quickly things happen the moment you actually then shift on your execution, provided you say, this is a better way to get to the vision. So everything's always about, does this help us get to the vision? Are we even remembering what that vision was to begin with? And then move back to that vision again, right? Which is why that's so important. So off the back of that, like here, when you go, oh yeah, that was our vision. That's where we want to be. So it's like, yes, we're on the right path. Then it's okay to be patient and take your time to do it. But you could always really be spending time to actually, okay, let's actually get the next thing going at the same time if we're already kind of like getting a bit stale doing this. But more importantly, you're always setting it at a level where you're not letting the tail wag the dog. And you know when to change for exactly the same thing. You go back to those same things. Is it the right vision? Is it the right effort? Because you're going to know already within yourself, is that actually something that's serving you for your greater self in the future? I always go through this thing that I do, which is a bit of a game, where I have such a clear vision of Roger Hamilton 2030 and what that person looks like. That person's 12 years older than me, right? He's like 62 years old, right? And he's looking at me every day and saying, what's taking you so long, right? It's like he's looking at me every day and saying, maybe you want to try this, maybe try that. And every time that I ever have got a decision to make or a distraction to look at, is this a distraction? Is this something that's going to help me forward? I'll look to my 62-year-old self and say, what do you think? And he goes, well, it's obvious, right? You obviously shouldn't be doing that because that doesn't get you to me. You do that, that will get you to me. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So you're always going to be thinking that your best mentor actually is your future self. And if you're really clear what that future self looks like, well, then it's really easy to then actually have a conversation with that future self and know what's the right thing to do, as opposed to getting stuck on some new opportunity or new idea or holding on to something for too long when you don't need to do it. And shift to good habits, for me, is all about community. It's all about being around the right people. I actually deliberately put myself out into spaces. Like I'm going to Burning Man in 2 days' time, right? And the reason I'm doing that is I know when I put myself into an entirely new environment, new things come up in new ways, in the most incredible ways. For example, I just had this sense on the way coming over. I was like, wow, we're coming over to America. We're coming over to America for the first time in in 4 years. And Teresa was coming with me. So basically, I went online, I booked my flights. I booked my flights to Los Angeles. I had to be in San Francisco, and I booked my flight to Los Angeles. So then Teresa said to me, I said, hey, Teresa, we're going to Los Angeles. We're going to leave on Saturday. And she said to me, and we're leaving from Bali. So she said, why? And I said, because I got to meet some people. She says, who are you going to meet? And I said, I don't know yet. That's really how the conversation was. Like, I don't know yet, but I'm going to meet some people. And I just knew there was just something which was my intuition, which is like, I'm going to go to Los Angeles. I'm going to meet somebody. So what then happened, so this was only like a couple of days ago, right? It was like last weekend. So what then happens is that we get on a plane. We're now flying. We fly to Seoul because the best way to get from Bali to Los Angeles is via Seoul, by Korean Air. And we get to Seoul, and we're like, first time Seoul, this is kind of cool. We're in Seoul. And then we're basically then getting on the plane to go to Los Angeles, right? And we're there going on to business class. And right in the front of the queue, here, I actually posted this, right? So I'll show you. This is within our Facebook group. So right in front of this is our Genius Ninjas. here we go. Is, of all people, Mark Victor Hansen, who's the co-producer of the Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? So here's Mark, and here's me, all right? And it says, hi, ninjas, look who I just met on the plane to LA. Mark Victor Hansen, he's the guy who co-wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books and was the first to bring me to the US in 2009. So what happened in 2009 is Mark, he came out to Bali saying, I want to represent all your stuff. I want to bring it, like, I'm done with my relationships right now with Robert Allen. I'm looking for someone with the best material. Everyone said it's you. Show me your stuff. Like he was the assistant for Buckminster Fuller, right? So he used to carry Buckminster Fuller's bags around, and then I showed him all my stuff, and he's like, right, I want to help you, right? And so that was the inspiration for me doing the Millionaire Master Plan. And when he brought me out, he was all over the place at that point. He was going through a relationship breakdown. He was going through a whole bunch of stuff. So it didn't actually last at that point, but we became really good friends. And then here we were, basically 9 years later. I hadn't seen him for 9 years. And 9 years later, we're on the plane. He's with his partner, who I did get to meet as well. And it was like 9 years hadn't even gone by. They're like, wow, this is so awesome. We're meeting up again. Here's all these people you need to meet. These are the things that you need to do. Here's how I can help you out. Like, where are things at now? Like, I'm telling him all about the resource, Genius U. He was telling me about what he's doing in terms of alternative energy right now. He sold the Chicken Soup series for $63 million. He's all cashed up. He's like, okay, I want to be able to help to do this. And we had the conversation pretty much the whole flight, right? We're having this conversation, right? It's like a 12-hour flight. And then off the back of it, like, we get to LA, and then we get off at LA, and then Teresa is like, hey, so Dad, who are you going to meet? And I go, oh, I met him already. It's like there's this whole, the universe is this magical place, right? Where if you actually follow your intuition, right, all the signs already are there, and the more in flow you are, the more the manifestation actually happens, and for all the right reasons as well. And when you're living your truth, that just shows up all around you, right? And those of you who are in it, you know it because you feel it. And every one of you have felt it in some stage, right? And some of you have felt it very recently. And so don't ever lose that feeling, right? Because that's the feeling of knowing you're actually, you're actually in tune with the universe, and the universe is in tune with you as well. So anyway, so that's all around these things. It's not like mechanical stuff. It's much more about like listening to your inner voice and knowing it. What I will say for questions for accountants, the number one question is show me what you do with high net worth individuals to help them to manage their numbers better. Because if they can't answer that because they haven't got any, then you're already speaking to the wrong people. So go and work with the right people. I would definitely recommend 2 people for you guys to connect with, right? Definitely connect up with Gloria, because Gloria, she already is now working with some real high level people. Definitely connect up with Jeremy and Deborah, because Jeremy now has moved his entire business to the CFO Co. And the 2 of them right now, right? So everything they're now doing is around that space. So obviously Gloria is in Glasgow, so she's kind of on your time zone, which helps. Profit. So she's on your time zone right now, and so here's Gloria's link, and then and she's like, now she's just won the award for like #1 business advisor in UK, which is pretty cool as well. Let me get back to this one. So there is this one here, and then this second one, which is Grow CFO Co. Now looks like this as well. So that is here, and there is actually, that's Grow CFO Co. And let me, I just saw this note from Jane, so before I go further, let me go to Box and see if I can get under the circle, the shared folder, the CCC. This has got the link to the whole CCC here. So I will drop that in here. Here is the CCC slides. You can download that. Okay, so let's come back to this, right? So let's come to Glenn Jane, right? So we've covered all of this already. Online presence, what should we do? Well, you heard what already I said to Dan, right? So for you guys, it's the same thing. It's like make sure you've now got your brand on there. Make sure you've got your, like every day you're opening up your Magnetic Minds emails before you're opening up your Magnetic Storm ones. Like just put it to top priority. Right, and then put your prime time to there as well, and actually say, your whole goal now is not to try and actually work inside Magnetic Storm, is to get the right team together. If you've got the right general manager, he should be able to go out and find the right people, right? If you're willing to give him a go and give that a go to actually grow it, it gives you your time. Your time's much more valuable. It's awesome you've got these big projects, and I'm not saying don't do anything on it, but I'm saying minimize your time on it to actually put real time into your online presence for all the reasons that I've actually shared so far. And one thing that I would say really super important, in terms of the 5 things, We cover this on the Emerald 2 core today, actually, but I will just go through it real quick in terms of what those two things were. We went through on here these 5, right? Let me just get them. So everyone who's been to Masters, you know about these 5 as well. So it's basically all around having your why, which is on your pitch deck, your enterprise promise, your 5 to 10 year plan. So you've all seen our Genius U pitch deck where we actually already say, here's where we're going. The team charter, which is your 1 year plan to say, here's where we are currently for this year. And here's our plan for the year. Everyone should be now working on your 2019 team charters ready. Your personal compasses for everyone actually break down into the 3-month packaging. Like, okay, here's what we're doing every 3 months. And then your promotion plans where you're actually checking them every month and you're actually having a meeting every week, right? And remember the cycle of this, right? Because if you're not following the cycle, if you do these 5 things, you're going to be green, no question, right? Because it gives you that rhythm to actually then get everything into play. But if you're not doing these things, then you won't have that rhythm, right? So really important to actually have them and to remember what that rhythm looks like. So I know on the Masters, for those, I think probably most of you have been on Masters, but in Masters, we actually, go through that rhythm really super clearly, right? So here's the rhythm, right? So your enterprise promise, which also includes your pitch deck, you almost never renew it. Like you review it annually, right? To say, what do we need to shift? But it's actually the same pitch deck, which is just upgraded. Your team charter, renew it annually and review it every quarter. So like every quarter we'll have our meeting to actually really make sure we're all on track for the next quarter. Personal compass, renew quarterly, review monthly. But everyone's doing that for themselves. That means you're not spending time jumping into the wrong thing. Your promotion plans, renew monthly, but review weekly. And then your flight deck, review weekly, renew daily. So like today, we just had our flight deck calls, right? And we're just on track with everything. And I can go off to Burning Man and do our stuff, and I just know everything's fine because everyone's on it and everyone's doing their thing and everyone's on top of their promotions. Everyone's on their personal compasses. So that way, everyone's either earning or learning, and it means that you're not the one having to worry about the business because others are out there actually making that happen, right? Which is really, really important. So just keep that in mind, and for you guys to have this now for Magnetic Minds is really, really important, right? Because then you then follow that forward, and that becomes the first thing you talk about before you start talking about Magnetic Storm, when at the moment it's kind of like the opposite way around. Okay, so Joel, dealmaker skills to raise funding only if it's giving you earned time to put money in your pocket. If it's something where you have to wait later to do the deal, don't do it. You know how difficult it is, right? The reason that your last business didn't work isn't because of the fact it wasn't a good idea. It didn't work because you didn't have the right deal-making skills to make it work, right? That's the reality, right? And that's okay, right? Because you can have other people do that in the future, or the business can actually get to a point where people are just throwing money at you. But don't go out there trying to say, like, hey, you were trying to raise money, maybe you can raise money for me as well, because that's not what you should be doing for your time right now, unless someone's going to pay you for it and it puts money in your pocket, and that gets you basically into strong yellow level, right? That's the first thing. Secondly, building marketing systems. Don't spend time on the marketing systems either. Like, go out and find a marketing system of others, but do focus at really making sure that you're proving your model and you're bringing cash flow in on the middle. The good news is your model can bring in cash flow without actually a lot of investment, right? It's just about going out and saying, where am I going to start? Where's going to be the first place? Who are going to be the people coming on board? And how I'm going to drive it. Also, the other thing is whenever you're looking for things around, like, for example, marketing systems, go out and find the best in class and say, what can I learn from them, which could be part of my model? So I'll give you an example, right? You say, who's got the best marketing systems for spa systems, for example, right? Well, you can go out, you can find these guys. Let me find them. Where are they now? Maybe they're not here. Hang on a second. I just opened a couple of pages while you were sharing. So this here is MindBody, right? So this is part of MindBody's. This came out 2nd of August. MindBody's second quarter revenue gets a boost from acquisition, right? So technology platform provider for the fitness, wellness, and beauty services industry grew revenue 40% year over year, but pared back its full year revenue outlook. So they're fundamentally doing very similar to what CloudSpa was trying to do, but doing it for the entire industry, meaning that they were basically saying, like, if we can find a more effective, efficient way for people to make more money, right, as from the therapist upwards, then people are going to want to pay us money for that, right? So MindBody got started not that long ago, right? So here's MindBody, Crunchbase. So here's our studio management software for yoga, Pilates, personal training, dance, martial arts, spas, salons, like all of them, right? Here's their page for everyone, live healthier and happier, right? So you can use this straight away, right? You can say, all right, we're going to actually use this to manage our business, right? So we're going to actually have this, and effectively it's your CRM system, it's basically your booking system, it's the whole thing. They're an American company. But because they focus on just this one thing, which is we're going to go out there and actually not worry about the premises. which is where most companies get killed, will basically help those premises to be more successful, right? And then they launched off the back of that. And they've now listed the company, right? Today, they're worth $35 million, right? That's not too shabby. And it's basically just a system which you can use, but they're worth $35 million. So you can say, well, we'll use their system to begin with. We'll learn from them. It means we don't have to actually create anything. We can go out and actually build our own structure to actually have a region which actually can then have the kind of like, massages on core. And then from that, we can actually make money either through our training, or which is our Magnify strategy. We can make money by actually taking a part of mind, body, tailor-making it for what we need, which is going to be more mobile spas, which don't have a location. And then from there, we'll then like grow that out. And eventually, we might decide to create our own. Because if we create our own, we can use it for anything that's actually a mobile or a virtual program, right? And then from there, you can really grow really fast, right? So that's the way that I would do it. I'll give you an example of someone who's done this really, really well. They were on just a call on Enterprise 5. They're actually going to come and join one of the Emerald cores, probably this one actually. And that is, and this is actually a good contact for Daniel too, right? So you might or might not have heard of him. And so if I go to the Enterprise 4 core, it should be here. Here's Enterprise 4. So here's Lewis, right? So Lewis Stedman, he's based up in Glasgow. So he has a company called Beyond Home Care, which is basically like for elderly. And he gets a lot of contracts. When we first met him, he was really stuck because he's getting a lot of contracts from governments, but he wasn't really making much money on it. And I'm like, you haven't got your different tiers of customer, right? Like, who would you really go for if you go for anyone? He's like, well, I'd probably go for the high-end customers, but no one's really going for them right now. It doesn't mean, I'm not sure if there's a real market for it. I said, of course there's a market for it. No one's going for it. You should go for that market. So here's what he wrote in just the AUKUS. So we talked just last week. So check this out, like highlight. I finally got the helicopter ride. So this is Lewis here, right? I finally got the helicopter ride and took that Roger. Sale of care hours developed for local government has hit like 1,500 a week to the 3rd of December, increase of 500 hours since starting for Circle. So he's like tripled his business. And he's getting over 8,000 more per week, which obviously is £400,000 per year. And now, because of the actual live-in care, which is basically his top level one, he's charging £1,300 a week. And he says, based on that, first class service, 24 hours live-in care starting at $1,300, plus his business class, which is private care, plus his economy class. He's now on track basically to hit another £1 million on top of that, right? And he's got like, it's like $1 million for this, $1.2 million for this, $1 million for this. So total basically of over 3 million. Starting from where he was at 500,000, right? So really big growth within 1 year. But the whole point is, like for someone like Daniel, connect up with Lewis because, like obviously first class should have your service in with all of them, right? So they're all actually in there as well, and he can afford it at the 1,300. And then he's giving some really super awesome stuff. But also the fact that he's actually started by saying, I'm going to actually create different levels. Like if you're going to have a massage, what's the different level of massage you're going to provide? What are different levels are you going to actually create in terms of your talent? Use all those tools in terms of yellow 1, yellow 2, yellow 3 to build the business. And then from there, say, what system would I use to do that? He didn't have to build his own system, but now he's actually starting to develop it, but not before he's already hit a couple of £1,000 worth of business that's coming through his business as well, right? So it's really super, super important to look at it that way. This is his company, by the way, Beyond Home Care. And this is the new, he's run this as a promotion, become one of just 10 customers, take launch for our exclusive new peace of mind living. So he's doing a textbook, what we talk about, start with your first customer, then get 10, then grow to 100. Don't try and get lots of funding to get to 1,000 when you haven't even got one customer yet, right? It's too early to do it. And so that would be for anyone who's trying to get there too quickly, the most important thing to do going forward as well, right? Anyway, I'll give you the link to that so you got it. And then I'm going to just finish up basically with the final sharing here, where for, that's my feedback to Joel. So let's come over to Rich and Kerry. So you guys, you're going for the pitch deck, which is great. It is about, like, as soon as you got that pitch deck, let me know so that I can actually have a good look at it. Knowing how much dollars to the team comes all back to, on that pitch deck, what's the revenue you think you're going to aim to achieve? And for each person that's coming on board, what revenue will they generate by coming on board? What would that allow you to do? So if you actually look at that and go, okay, great, we're going to hit this much money this year, which means that we're going to be this much in size. So for example, on your revenue base, if you go, okay, we're going to hit 1.5 million this year, with the right team, it's going to get us from 1.5 million up to 4.5 million next year, let's say, which means you're going to triple in size. So if you can do that, you can triple in size, someone who's going to invest in is going to say, well, my investment is going to triple in size as well, right? They're not looking for profitability when you're an online business. They're looking for growth. So you could say, okay, if we're at 1.5 million, what is your net out of that? Like, what are you netting? So it might be that you're netting maybe 20% or 30%. You say, we're netting 30%, which is 450,000. You could feasibly say that the value of your business is maybe 10 times your net, which means that if you were netting 350,000 in terms of what revenue you're generating, because obviously a lot of this is actually being generated on behalf of your merchandise customers, right? So what are they getting out of it? And then what are you getting out of it that you say, here's the revenues that we're getting that we can actually then monetize by really like making sure that we can actually expand and grow. It's a multiplier. You could then say, well, we could be worth already like $4.5 million, which means that in a year's time, we could be worth over $12 million. So someone comes in and says, well, then we'll give you money to help you to get to that next level. What are you going to spend the money on? And you go, well, we can actually see already, we're going to bring this team on board that's going to help to deliver that. We're going to need this person, this person, this person. If they can see that as a result of that money coming in, you're going to get that result, great. But you need to prove the multiplier first, which you guys are doing. But I want to see that in the pitch deck, right? Which then allows us to actually then track it and say, right, this is the money you need. Especially because you're raising money, which isn't necessarily, you don't want to raise money just for stock. So you want to have smart ways you're dealing with stock. You do want to raise money either for marketing or for your resources, like people. Those are the two things that people are more likely to invest money in because they know without those two things, you can't accelerate. It's really good that you're at an operational break even. Keep it that way. Because by doing that, it means people know they're not just giving you money to stem losses. They're giving you money to help you to accelerate to the next level. And when you actually say, right, here's where we're going to use that money, then that makes total sense to do it. I think you could potentially, this is just, finger in the air based on your current projections. I think by the end of this year, if you're, looking to start raising money now, and you're looking at a value of somewhere like $4.5 million, and you're looking to raise something like 250,000 to start with, that's like 5% of the business, right? I think that's a solid way of looking at it, right? And they might have some people wanting to negotiate 10% of the business or something like that, which isn't that big a deal when you're getting your first 250,000 in to actually then grow the business because it's your seed round. It's more about closing that round as you go forward. There's a very good chance you're going to find some of the people who currently are your customers who are going to want to invest because they actually can see that they're going to want to be part of your future as well. And even some of the partners you bring on board could be the ones that want to invest to actually be part of this rather than going out and getting your own factory. And then off the back of that, they then can grow off the back of what you're doing as well. But in terms of where you find those investors and so on, we can go more into that. But if my feel, just knowing your business and where you're at, is somewhere around 250,000 the first round, then saying that the next round you're going to be raising more like 500 to 750,000, at least 2 or 3 times what you're raising at the first round, makes a lot more sense. Because then people who come in earlier feel more exclusive. And then at the same time, they know within a year, you're going to be actually raising at least a double, if not triple value from where you are right now. And they're going to go, great, like I put $50,000 in now, it's going to be worth 100 or 150. And you want to prove that that's the case. So with Genius U, we're proving that we're taking for $8 million valuation. Our most recent valuation is $28 million. So that's all happened within 3 years. Those investors at the beginning are like, great, my money from 8 million going up to 28 million is already a 3.5 times return on my money. So then they're telling their friends. And so we're constantly getting people knocking on the door saying, can we invest in Genius U? And that's what you want for your business, right? That allows you to then keep on focusing at growing and making sure that you're hitting your targets. Because fundamentally, the money is not really buying people. It's just buying you time. That's what it's really doing. Okay, so hopefully in this call, I've not just been answering the questions, but hopefully taking it to a slightly different level in the way I've been sharing about the Bushido Code as well. I'm going to stop sharing now and give everyone a chance to share whatever's biggest thing that's come out of this call for you. And I will start with Daniel.
Aloha. Biggest thing for myself, I'm sure I say this every time, this has been one of the best calls I've been on, definitely. Prior to this call, I have been a bit lost, just kind of coming home, no routine or anything, and I just needed to just kind of get my arrow firing again. So it's been really, really good for just recentering where I'm at, and I've got stuff I need to be working on for the next month. So clarity and direction is what I've got from this. Thank you very much. Awesome. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Daniel. Fabulous. And see you and others at our event in London coming up as well. All right, let's come over to Waldy. Oh, yeah, still on mute.
Ikigai, talent, passion, purpose, and earnings. Doesn't have to fall into another business. Take it slow but fast. Ikigai, definitely.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Waldy. And great to see you back in this focus again, right? Because I know you kind of went off and then back and then coming back. This is super awesome. And it's great to hear not just you, but also Jane, like, you know, being able to go away from the business and see the business actually grow in revenues while you're away, right? That's the universe saying time to move, right? Which is really awesome. Okay, let's come over next to Sophie.
Hello, another great call. I agree. The things that you mentioned, they've given me the numbers. I know they're legit. I've done my background check, so that I know that this is sincere. And I do have a feeling it is actually very strongly linked with the funding and empowerment financially and supporting creative, impact-driven entrepreneurs. However, I hear what you say as my mentor, so obviously I will just sit in and tune in, and I won't sign anything anyway, you know, before I see any numbers. So it's like the other ones have said, it's good just to be back and have your energy and that clarity, and then just keep on staying on track, I guess. And
I'm happy once you've got that from them, send it over, Skype it over to me, and I'll give you my comment, as long as I'm not out on the playa with no internet access, right? So after next week, I'll be able to do that for sure.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I will. Okay,
cool. All right, fabulous. One thing I'm going to say is I love the way that the painting behind Joel's head makes it look like he's got bunny ears. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to come over to to Joel next.
That's my guardian angel by my daughter. But it does make me look like a bit of a rabbit, doesn't it? I thought horns at first, but I prefer rabbit ears. That's better. Brilliant to be back on the call. I've been in kind of quick generate money mode and fallen back into just a kind of a small operation just to kind of pay the bills at the moment. But what you've done again is to remind me of the fundamentals that need to be really in place to give me the motivation and the spirit and the vision. And I'm actually going to go back to Genius U and just go from the beginning again, from like step one, just to go through that. And you've also reminded me of those structures with the promotion plans and the team charters, which is the structure I need. Because as a deal maker, I'm quite intuitive and quite kind of off the cuff. But what I really benefit from is that framework to actually put structure to all my ideas and kind of in the moment. So that's me.
Very cool. Awesome, Joel. Very cool to hear it. And great to have you back on here. It's fantastic. Fabulous. Okay, let's come over to Richard and Kerry.
Sorry, just trying to get some sound on there. Yeah, thanks, Roger. Really, really great call. And yeah, I think it's just given us the confirmation that we're doing the right thing, going for investment. And, you know, it's a big decision for us, and it's taken us a long time to get the sort of majority vote on it. I think from the call, what I'm going to take away is just to go back and look at future vision, because as always, we're guilty of not looking at it enough. And actually investment was definitely one of the things on there. So I'm going to look back at it and see what else we should be keeping ourselves to task on. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And 100% right. You're on the right track. Definitely you're down this pathway, which, you know, we talked about a long time back, right? In terms of like, hey, you guys have this opportunity to really be thinking like an exponential business. And now you're going down that path, I think is really super awesome. So once you got your pitch deck together, maybe even on the next call, we can actually walk through it and then really kind of fine tune it up as well, which would be awesome. Yeah, sure. So thank you. Fabulous. Let's come over to Jane.
Sorry, getting there. Hiya. I think just the same as the other guys, but very much going back to the future vision, because I think it's very easy to get muddled in stuff that's happening and to think that you're on the right path without actually being on the right path of whatever path it is that you want to be on. And the flexibility around timing. I really enjoyed your analogy around the goals versus your standards. That probably for me was a highlight, is just, I've never thought of it that way. And it's really to focus on the standards in order to achieve those goals. I'm just reaching high all the time and missing.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Okay, awesome. Very good, Jane. And Anthony and Jackie.
I think from my side, it's really the 8 steps to everything. It's great how everything fits into 8 steps as well. It makes it super easy. But yeah, just the reminder there that there's always a path to follow, and it's just a big cycle. And when you fall off it, you just got to remind yourself whereabouts you are on the path and start taking the steps again. So it's really simple, and we overcomplicate it.
Exactly. It's so simple, but then not. Okay, that's awesome. Well, it's been really great just catching up with everyone, and I'm glad I had a chance to kind of like summarize it more on this call, all these different elements, and it just is perfect for this call because of where everyone's at and where everyone's focusing at the moment as well. So like I said, really looking forward to seeing all of you who I'll be seeing in the UK, and then obviously anyone I'm not seeing in the UK, have a fabulous month ahead, and we'll catch up with you all on our next call. All right, thanks very much, guys. See you all later.